This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome to episode 4 of NWA Crock and Roll. I am your host, Sean Kidd. And while we're not the longest running Gold Standard podcast, we are certainly the longest running actual podcast based on our last episode in terms of length. So welcome back. We're glad to have you back. And we are excited to talk about July 1985 of Crocket. But before we get into that, I would like to introduce my other co-hosts and our rotating fourth horseman. So first and foremost, Dr. G, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to breaking down tonight. This is a busy month. So we're in for some exciting stuff. But I think every month it seemed like in this period of time was a busy month. But with the Bash, it just added a little extra.
I agree. The Bash, and then even the week after the Bash, because we had a big tag team title match like 3 days after the Bash is when it was actually recorded. So really hot first week of July, second week of July. So look forward to talking about that. Definitely.
I'm looking forward to talking about that tag team championship match, though.
Yep. It's an all-time classic. So I'm looking forward to talking about it, too. Calum, McDougal, how you doing? Calum?
I'm very good, Sean. How are you? That's the second time I've said it because I just happened to mute myself.
Well, you had to get your pot of coffee off the stove, I assume. So.
I did. I'm ready to go in our fatal four-way. I'm ready to go 4 hours again tonight. If the sun hasn't come up by the time we've finished recording, I'll be very disappointed, gents.
Well, I'm hoping it's not 4 hours. We only have 4 weeks this time versus 5 weeks last time, but. In August, we do have 5 weeks again, so maybe we'll be able to hold it off till August for you.
Excellent.
But again, welcome, Calum, as always. And our fourth rotating horseman I'm on numerous pods with, and is one of Calum's co-hosts on the Great Special Relations podcast, Ben Locke. He's he's with me on the Chicken Salad podcast and our Highway to the Impact pod. Ben, how you doing?
Hi, Sean. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very well, my friend. How are you?
I am great. I always enjoy having you on the pods. I enjoy our banter back and forth, even if sometimes there might be shit takes abound, but it's always a good time having you on the show.
Oh, thank you, Paul, again. Thank you for having me and throwing me right in at the deep end. I appreciate it.
Well, that's what I usually do. Last podcast, we had a first-time podcaster, Keith, and we threw him right in, and he did great, and you'll do great too. So, but before we get started, I would like to go back and talk about Road Warrior Animal. And I know Ben and I did kind of our thoughts about him on one of the Highway to the Impact Zones, and Dr. G and Scott did a fantastic tribute on the Saturday special. But Calum, I wanted you to just go to you and ask you any thoughts on Road Warrior Animal, who passed away a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it was gutting news to see it come through because he wasn't particularly old, and he was one of these guys that you never really heard a bad word said about him. He's obviously just, you hear them about may or may not have taken liberties with guys in the ring, but that's because the only way him and Hawk knew what to do. But he seemed like a really, really genuinely nice guy, and it was really heartbreaking to hear the news that he'd passed.
Yeah, it was definitely sad. It definitely hit home for me. And Dr. G, going to you. I mean, you and Scott did an amazing Saturday special about it. So if you guys who are listening haven't heard that, please go to Please to Be Nation Wrestling and go back and give a listen to the Saturday special. It was really, really well done to you and Scott, Dr. G.
Thank you. And Road Warrior Animal, like I mentioned real quickly on that podcast, is that he was definitely my favorite. That was my favorite tag team. So I was telling the story when we were in middle school, and we all had like wrestling nicknames. So a friend of mine, he loved Hawk, so he was Hawk, and I was Animal. So I just, I always remember that so much, and then having a big poster on my wall of the Road Warriors winning the Crocket Cup. I had that, the PWI always had the poster insert, so I had that on my wall. And I just, and I listened to his podcast as well. So it's just like literally, I think that, a few days before he passed, I listened to his podcast, and, very opinionated, Animal was very, very opinionated, but he really loved the business and he loved the fans. And that's what I respected most about him is that, as tough of a guy as, he portrayed on television, he really was a good guy, and he really loves to help, he loved to help young wrestlers who are coming up, and especially tag teams. So he's going to be missed. Another loss in the wrestling biz, which, is really tough. And, our prayers go out to his family, but it's just, wow. That was a little gut punch, because that's something I definitely wasn't expecting.
Absolutely, I agree. And I think the benefit, at least for us, and then Ben, I'll ask you any further thoughts, is we're just now getting to the Road Warriors in our watch. So we get to move forward, get to watch the Road Warriors and how they progress in Crocket and in the NWA, and we got quite a few matches with them coming up in the next few months. So it'll be really nice to relive some of those memories. And I'm with you. I remember that Crocket, that PWI magazine with that poster, because they beat Magnum TA and Ron Garvin in the finals of that, which, is no team to sneeze at when you think about, the past, right? You got a former great U.S. champion and a former world champion that they beat for that cup. So, but I remember that poster vividly. So, Ben, how about you? I know we talked about on the Highway and Impact Zone, and then we actually talked a little bit about it on Chicken Salad when we talked about the Mount Rushmore of the tag team division, and the Road Warriors is obviously on there. But any further thoughts on Road Warrior Animal before we get started?
Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate what the other guy said. These probably are my favorite tag team if I'm thinking about it. Obviously, I'm of an age where I didn't get to see them in their prime, or, I started watching wrestling in November of '92, so they'd already gone back from the WWF at that point. But as a team, that attitude and that style would have fit in with any era, wouldn't it? Could you imagine like prime Road Warriors versus prime Dudleys, for example? They would fit in at any point in the spectrum of the last 40 years.
Absolutely. You put them in there with a Revival, it'd be like Tully and Arn against them again. It's like you could put them in with any team. I agree with you. That's a great point.
You saw it a bit in NXT. Obviously, with Ellering, it's the example I can think of straight away. Authors of Pain in NXT with a great tag team like the Revival or DIY.
Yeah.
They would fit in. They would fit in with any team any era from the last 34 years easily.
Absolutely. So Road Warrior Hawk will be deeply missed. So hopefully as we continue doing this pod over the next few months and down the road, we can relive some of their great memories and have good, and just look at it and say, wow, what a great body of work these guys did and what a great team they were. So Road Warrior Animal, you'll definitely be missed. So, all right. So with that, we're going to jump right into it. So you guys ready?
All righty.
Let's do it.
Go for it.
All right. So Ben, normally what I do before we start our watches is I ask our guest, what memories do you have of Crocket? Do you have any memories of Crocket? Is this your first time watching Crocket? Where are you in your Crocket in terms of being a wrestling fan before doing this pod tonight?
It's my first time watching, say, the week-to-week television. I'm familiar with the things on the network, so the big hits, the pay-per-views. When you get to '88, the clashes, that kind of thing. But in terms of week-to-week television, this is my first sample of it.
Oh, that's exciting. That's good. So I look forward to hear what your thoughts are when we get to the end, for sure.
But there was only really one guy out of everybody who we saw who I was not aware of. So I know who everybody is. I'm not. Please tell me it was Jimmy. Please tell me it was Jimmy Valiant. I know I had heard of the name Jimmy Valiant. It was actually Paul Jones was the person.
Oh, well, you know what a big fan Paul Jones fan I am.
But everybody else, I'd at least heard the name or seen a couple of matches of.
Yes, in the chat, I'm sure you've seen his name numerous times for many different reasons, whether they're wrong or right. But I do love Paul Jones. So
Paul Jones
very
is
good.
classic this month, let me tell you.
He is. So with that, we're going to jump right into it. So Ben, I definitely look forward to hearing your thoughts at the end as an overall watch, since this is your first time. So with that, guys, we're going to jump right into July 6th of 1985. We were at the Great American Bash. So June last month was all about the build, all about the watches, getting to a lot of these matches and these feuds. And the way we're going to watch it is there was a release called Ringmasters that was a nice little hour videotape that Pro Wrestling Illustrated produced to give little snippets of the clashes. So a lot of them are from like 2 to 5 to 6 minutes. So we don't get the whole watch of the matches, but we're going to recap what we have, give our thoughts on what we saw. We're not really going to rank the matches per se, because there's not really a whole lot of match to rank in a lot of these cases. What I do like, though, is I feel like they gave us the highlights of those matches. So a lot of the filler and things got taken out. But in saying that, PWI, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, a very, very famous magazine, at least for me growing up. And, before there was internet, there was PWI. And that's how I followed the indies. That's how I followed all the wrestling territories. And it was almost like the Bible of wrestling for me to learn about the things that I couldn't watch on TV. So, Dr. G, I know you also read Pro Wrestling Illustrated growing up. Any thoughts on PWI and what it meant to you as a wrestling fan?
Well, I'll tell you, John, I mean, that's the one magazine I read every single month. And it was, I hated to go shopping, like my mother would want me to come along shopping with her, to food shopping. So, of course, where did I go? As long as I got my my Pro Wrestling Illustrated magazine, I was happy. I'd be walking around the store with her, reading the magazine through through the whole store. So that was the magazine. Obviously, there was also the Wrestler and Inside Wrestling, which is part of the After Mags, as they call them, at that time, that I also read. I mean, one memory I have of the PWI where I learned a lot of my wrestling history was my friend's father was a wrestler down in Florida. And I mentioned this on one of the other podcasts. And he knew Ernie Roth, who was the Grand Wizard, who had a condo down in Fort Lauderdale. So I actually had been in that condo a couple of times because we used to go see the boat show, the Christmas boat show all the time. He was never there, but we would go. And when he passed, his manager was friends with my friend's father, and he asked him, could you hold all these? Like, he had literally suitcases full of wrestling magazines going back from whatever, the late 60s, early 70s up until the current time in the 80s. And I literally would go over to my friend's house and I just would sit there. I'm like, okay, I just want to read all these and literally just went through all these magazines. And that's how I really got a good wrestling history, especially from the, say late 60s, early 70s until present time. So those magazines, I mean, I know that, a lot of it was kayfabe, but you still learned about what was going on around the world because you couldn't see everything. I mean, I did get a lot of wrestling down in Florida, but I didn't see every single territory. So those magazines were really a good learning point because I didn't know anything about the, the Dave Meltzer, those rags, if you want to call it that, or whatever you want to call it. So the dirt sheets. So this is where I, really learned cut my teeth, and I loved it. And I loved, what was the one writer? Was it Stu Stacks? That was like kind of like the heel.
Stu Stacks.
Yep.
Yeah, he was kind of like the heel. He'd write the.
Yeah, they had their own gimmicks in the magazine, which was hilarious, right?
Right.
Gimmicks. Yep.
Exactly. So
first off, I love a good Dr. G wrestling story because you gave us the great one last time about Denny Brown, and now we got this one about the Wizard's house, which is great.
I got a lot of them.
No, I know. So thank you for that. So that's first and foremost. Second, I was with you. Like, I would look forward to going to the grocery store or whatever store my mom took me to because I would head right over to the magazine aisle, and while she's shopping, I would be thumbing through the Inside Wrestling, the Wrestler, the PWI. I'd be sitting there right in front of the magazine rack reading those while she's off doing her shopping. And then what I would do is I would end up buying all three anyway, even though I had already read them already. because I wanted to go home and study them. It was just such a great. If you were a wrestling fan, those magazines were great growing up to learn about pro wrestling, and I learned a lot about
$2.50. I remember for each mag at that time.
And then later, and they always had arena reports. They always had profiles. They had spotlights, and the year-end magazines were always really, really great when they started those because they were really huge year-end magazines that gave you all the arena results for the whole year. Just great, great stuff. So a lot of fond memories with that. So.
And they also did a weekly back in the 90s. I remember when I was in college.
They did a Pro Wrestling Weekly TV show. Yep. With Pedicino. I used to watch that as well, and it covered all territories, and you actually got to see video of the other territories you couldn't watch. So absolutely. Calum, were you a Pro Wrestling Illustrated guy, or was that before your time?
Well, it's slightly before my time in a sense that I never saw PWI in a shop over here, or certainly not in my neck of the woods. I bought exactly 2 PWI items. I bought a magazine in 2006 when I was on holiday in Florida, which had an interesting article. I always remember it. It was where will in 10 years, so like a prediction for 5 and 10 years in the future, where all the big stars would be, and some not so big stars. Interesting to see. I'll need to try and go back and look for that now. It's interesting to see where some of those guys would be if they actually came true. And I bought I think it might have been 2004, the yearly almanac.
The almanacs were later. They were really good too.
Yeah. So I bought one of them at the airport on my way home, so I had something to read on the plane the way home.
Very cool.
And
Very
that
cool.
kept me entertained for hours on end.
Excellent. Ben, how about you? Any Pro Wrestling Illustrated experiences before we move on?
Apart from the year-end polls, not really. I mean, I'm not a big magazine collector at the best of times, so no, I didn't read the magazine, but I am familiar with Bill Apter through his appearances at certain WCW events, and also obviously Stu Stacks before. But apart from the top 500, there's nothing I can add to it really.
Well, the good news about Apter is you can see him a lot of shows. He's at ringside taking photographs, so I'm sure you've seen him 100 million times at ringside during a lot of the shows.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, great memories of Pro Wrestling Illustrated. I could spend hours talking about old wrestling magazines, but we're not here for that. But the reason why I wanted to talk about that is because this is who promoted this Ringmasters video, and you guys can actually watch this along. We watch this on YouTube at Daily Motion. It is cut into sections, but you can watch it. And it is hosted by the great Gordon Solie and Bill Apter. So we open it up. The opening is really cool. It's, the scenes, and they talk about, you see the helicopter, Flair flying in, you see all the stars. Then you go into Apter, and it's a really great intro by Solie with talking about the feuds that we have discussed already on this pod. And I love that this watch that we're doing right now, we have summed up almost every single one of these feuds in our watch so far, and it's a really cool end game to see these matches on paper, even though it's cut short. So the first thing is Solie introduces Bill Apter, and Bill Apter says the Bash is a big golden anniversary for Jim Crockett Promotions. We are 50 years into Jim Crockett Promotions at this point. Said a lot of pride is at stake. Solie summarizes the Bass versus Landell feud and says Bass challenged Landell the night of the Bash. So, again, the matches are cut short for time. It's a stadium setting, which is very, very cool. I think it's called the American Legion Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina. So our first match up is kind of a blood feud at this point. It's Bass versus Landell. They've broken up recently through different circumstances, et cetera, et cetera. So Shivani is the only commentator on this show. And, again, remember, these matches are cut. So Shivani notes the big difference in Bass and Landell is in terms of their wrestling styles. One is flamboyant, and the other one's a grassroots wrestler. So I would assume Landell would be the flamboyant one, and Bass would be the more grassroots. I'm not gonna go line by line on this match. For me, it's a lot of punching, a lot of kicking, outside fighting, et cetera, to the point of where it goes to a time limit draw. I think we got about 5 minutes of this match, but for me, it just seemed like a big punch, slap, kick fest for the most part. But I'll go around the horn and ask everybody their thoughts. So, Dr. G, what did you think about the little bit we saw of Bass versus Landell that opened up the Bash?
I agree with you as not much of a, if you're looking for a wrestling match. But the one thing I really noticed was J.J. Dillon was really getting a lot of heat.
Yes.
He was inserting himself in that, and the crowd was just hot. I mean, I don't even know. Do you think today, if you put that match on, the crowd would be as hot? I mean, this crowd was just so into this match.
Doctors, I don't know. I ask myself every time I watch a Jimmy Valiant match the same thing.
I mean, it's something about these guys really just, what it was? I think the reason why there was a lot of heat, if you remember when you were younger, you always loved, I remember I really was marking out for Macho Man when he became, when he turned face. You love to see that heel that you've always hated. There's something about it when they turn baby face, and you actually love them even. You know what I'm saying? You take it to another level because you can't believe it. So I think with Bass, I mean, obviously Bass is not at that level, but what my point is that Bass was such a heel. I mean, I know he's kind of gone back and forth in his whole career, but he was such a heel before that to see him actually turn on J.J. Dillon and Buddy Landel, I think the crowd really got into that because Landel was a great, heel. He got a lot of heat, and so did J.J. Dillon. So that's what I take away from this more than anything was the crowd was really hot. Dillon was getting a lot of heat. J.J. Dillon actually kind of made the match, to be honest with you.
And then Bass actually gets a claw on him at the end, and then Buddy Landel pulls him out. So the crowd was going nuts for the claw on JJ.
Exactly, because that was like when Bobby Heenan, everybody would love to see him get beat up, or Jimmy Hart. Everybody always wanted to see those guys get their butts kicked because they were aggravating and annoying, doing their job that they're supposed to be doing and getting the heat. So that's pretty much what I take away from that more than anything is that the heat that Dillon was getting and how the crowd was really into this match, which, in today's world maybe would be, low mid-card match.
Yeah, and it was a good face turn for Bass. I mean, he was kind of directionless at this point, and he's kind of a good mid-carder brawler, so maybe we'll see it long-term how he plays out. But, again, I think it served its purpose. It was really to get Bass over as a new babyface and get heat on Landel and JJ as they continue their ways. So, great point. Calum,
exactly.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with everything that Dr. G said there. I've got a note about how the crowd is a really hot crowd. But it's becoming a standard note for me on these shows. That's the one thing that's really stuck out, especially given that if you turn on the telly now or turn on the network for anything, it's piped in noise or no noise whatsoever. Obviously through no fault of their own, but it's a nice change, and it looked like a massive crowd as well.
It was a pretty good crowd, yeah.
So even you expect it from a stadium, but there's not. It doesn't look as if there's the only gap is on the field where they're just not allowed. They've not sold tickets. And JJ was the MVP of this one for me. Fairly standard stuff in, but JJ was superb on the outside.
Agree with you. Ben, your thoughts? Your first 85 Crocket watch, Buddy Landel versus Ron Bass. What'd you think?
Yeah, I mean, it was like Spin said, it was a fairly basic standard match, but there was such good heat and intensity to it. My first note was about the referee's outfit. I don't know if that's a regular thing, them red pants, but
yeah, they are early Crockett. Yes, they are.
Okay.
In the big shows, outside shows, not normally. I don't think they have red pants, but.
but yeah, like Spin said, it was quite jarring to see JJ was somebody who isn't Ric Flair or the Horseman. So, but yeah, he was great, and like I say, I really liked the brawling between Landel and Bass. I thought that bit was really good outside the ring.
Yeah, we said this before about JJ. It's interesting to see him in this zone now, where he's just managing the mid-carders versus the Horsemen. So it'll be interesting to see how we get to a point where he starts getting involved with the Horsemen, because right now he's kind of a mid-card manager, very similar to a Paul Jones. But it's just crazy to see him here and think about, wow, one day he's going to manage the greatest foursome in wrestling history. So it's really cool to watch him right now. So I agree.
Yeah.
All right, so our next match is for the national tag titles, which I think we've all self-proclaimed our love for the Andersons tag team at this point. They kicked off our podcast back in April, and here we are again. So it's great to basically, here we are from a main event standpoint. We've seen the Andersons building up their feud with the Sawyers, and lucky for us, Colin McDougal, we don't have to deal with Bart or whatever the hell his name is, the other brother of the other Sawyer brother, but we get Dick Slater instead. How do you feel about that, swapping out the other brother for Slater?
Absolutely delighted. I think it made for a better match. But the one thing that really hit home for this match was that I'm really glad that Buzz's eye's okay, because as we know, you can come back from a broken arm, but you can't get your eye back. You can, once you lose it, you can't get it back. If you've got a leg injury or an arm injury, that's okay, but you can't get your sight back. You cannot. If you lose your sight, it's never coming back.
You just popped me with the reference from the last pod about the eye. Oh my God, you come back from the eye. I still wait. His name's Brett Sawyer still, right? Let's get that straight. Is that his clone? Yeah. Anyway,
it's Brett. Yeah.
So anyway, Brett Sawyer. Okay, so so the Andersons are taking on Slater and Buzz Sawyer. So thankfully, like I said, we don't have to live through the other Sawyer brother because he's probably taking care of someone's eye. So the national tag titles are on the line. So the faces rush the ring to start. They start beating on Anderson. Arn's tossed out of the ring by Slater as Buzz beats up on Ole in a corner. And I know we've had this conversation. Some people on this pod aren't fans of Buzz Sawyer, but I think he matches up well with the Andersons in terms of brawling. They tried to do a belt bounce up. I think Ole took off his belt and he ended up smacking himself in the head at one point on a really bad rope spot where he hit the turnbuckle and it bounced back on him. I thought this was a really fun brawl. I think there's a lot of good tag team work. Like there's parts where Ole just makes tag team wrestling so good because he'll get in places and he'll try to get in the corner and make tags and try to lure people in. And I thought this was just a good hoss fight, and I enjoyed it. I think the right people won, so the Andersons won. And, of course, the crowd is super, super hot because they want to see Slater and Sawyer just kill the Andersons. But I think for the most part, the faces dominated, and in the end, the Andersons pulled it out. They did the whole switch-out thing where Arn covers his face on a pin, so it looks legit on the swap-out. So I really enjoyed what little we have in this match. I would have liked to have seen a little bit more, but I'll go to you first. Calum, what were your thoughts on the match that we saw here?
I was just saying, good, hard-hitting and chaotic fun. I have noted that as my first note here. I wish it wasn't clipped as badly as it was, because I would have liked to have seen the majority. If we couldn't get the whole match, then definitely a lot more than we got. And I liked the psychology of the pin as well, with the hiding the face, so you couldn't see, because obviously for the top of the head down they look exactly the same, so you don't know who's the legal, who's the illegal partner. So I thought that's it's small details like that that you are missing today that just adds to the presentation and everything. And the other note I've got is right at the very end, Ole laid in the elbow that he dropped on, I think was it Buzz that was that was pinning. I mean, that looked as if he was hitting something, and if he hit the mat, great. If he hit the person, even better.
I agree. I liked this match quite a bit. I wanted to see more. Ben, what are your thoughts?
First thing, did we all know that Dick Slater's unpredictable?
I did, because he says it several times.
I just wanted to put that out there. Yeah, the little bit that we saw, I really enjoyed. It was, like I say, I've only seen sort of potted highlights or only a couple of matches of the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, but even this little bit, you could tell that they were true masters that Arn's only been in the business a couple of years at this point. It's quite scary to watch, actually.
Yeah, Arn debuted here in April, and he already looks like he's a veteran in the ring. And the tag team, him and Ole just look amazing together. So
exactly. Yeah, totally.
Unbelievable. Dr. G, your thoughts?
It's funny. We just sing the praises of the Andersons every week. I mean,
I can't help it.
I could see the Andersons. I could see them being tag team champions at that time, world tag team champions. They were that good. The teamwork, I just love watching their teamwork. And again, here's a classic example of a good, just, storyline, wrestling storyline, very simple, because it involves family with Buzz and Brett Sawyer and Slater coming in as the friend to try to help. Very simple storyline, and everyone was into it. And that's why the crowds wanted to see the Andersons lose, and the babyfaces dominated. Andersons came out with the win in the end, but the crowd was hot during this match. Now, again, we didn't get the whole match, so the part we did see, the crowd was very hot. And I just love watching Ole and Arn work. I mean, and we love Arn and Tully, which were great too, but I just think I think because we hear so much stuff on shoot interviews and stuff like about Ole Anderson, we kind of have a bad taste in our mouth because he's just a miserable old man. But he really, he was a good worker, a good, solid, in-ring, good tag team wrestler. And Arn's a good, singles and tag team. But, obviously I think, probably Arn's even more known for his tag team wrestling, and this is the reason why. I mean, and it's amazing. I think he was in the business only for a couple of years. I know he had, he was in Mid-South and he was in Southeastern Championship Wrestling, but this stuff was awesome. I really, really enjoyed this match. I love anytime we can watch the Andersons. I've been really enjoying it, and that's exactly what I put on my notes. I'm like, this was just typical Andersons, just putting on another good, solid match.
I like the point you brought up about Tully and Arn. They're one of my all-time favorite tag teams, but the Andersons, like Ole Anderson is so good at tag team work, and I never was a big Ole guy because my main focus when I was watching Ole was around the time he started to leave the Horsemen. And going back and watching this old stuff and watching how he is in tag team matches and how he lures and how he uses psychology, and he's really an amazing wrestler to watch in these environments. And I don't know, by the time we get through this, the Andersons might trump me. I hate to say it, might trump me on that Tully and Arn team because I really love this tag team. So
they're very underrated. They just had a lot of great tag teams at the time. But I could have seen them as World Tag Team Champions, no problem. I mean,
and the tragedy is they never won the World Tag Team titles. They never won the titles. So, yeah, they're a definite miss. But I'm definitely enjoying. They're the highlight of these pods for me. They're so great. So, and we'll have more of them coming up later. So, moving on, our next match, a 6-man tag team match with Paul Jones' family, Abdullah the Barbarian, Superstar Billy Graham against Sam Houston, Manny the Raging Bull Fernandez, who I know Ben is a big fan of because he's been texting me about the Bull, and Mark Tyler, your Mid-Atlantic champion. So after sets up that Jones family, they took this match for granted because as we go to the match with Barbarian and Tyler, they're locking up. The faces take turns in corner, knocking Barbarian around. The Bull tags in, hits a series of chops, and does a nice sequence of reversals, and it's just a really, really great match. And it's interesting. Sam Houston, and again, I'm not going to go line by line on this. In the end, Sam Houston scores the pin, and they have really been trying. He scores the pin on Superstar Billy Graham, a former world champion. And they have really been pushing Sam Houston in this mid card, and I'm just sneak peek under the tent. I'm well ahead in our watches of this show. I'm in September, and the Sam Houston in August and September, you almost think he's a main event wrestler. So this is a really good shine moment for Sam Houston. I thought the Bull looked good. The Jones family, they're kind of plotting. Superstar Billy Graham's past his heyday. Abdullah the Butcher, he's still impressive. He's just a big, big, big dude. But Sam Houston winning this is crazy, and pitting Superstar Billy Graham is even more shocking to me. So, Ben, what were your thoughts on this 6-man tag team match and the Jones family losing, and one Sam Houston pitting Superstar Billy Graham?
That part was quite shocking. I'm not sure to say that part was quite shocking to me. But that was my first real look at Sam Houston because obviously the version that's in the WWE, they don't really play him off that well. So,
well, he got hired somehow. It wasn't from wrestling Danny Davis.
I
thought it was okay. It was manageable. It moved the card along. There wasn't a great deal to be said for it, but as a 6-man, it was okay.
Okay, so you think it's a solid 6-man?
I thought so. There was there's nothing out of the ordinary apart from Bull's haircut that scared me off, really.
All right. Dr. G, what were your thoughts on this 6-man match?
It was, good solid match, something to have in the middle of the card, get a bunch of guys on the card. One note I had was that, the Raging Bull's not bad in the ring. I didn't remember that.
Yeah, he is good. His promos suck. In ring, he's great.
Yeah, I again, one of those guys I took for granted at the time, but I'm actually kind of enjoying watching him work. He's actually a good, solid performer, good mid card performer, and I was kind of shocked about Sam Houston beating Superstar Billy Graham, but where was Superstar Billy Graham's career at this time? He just seemed like he was floating. It's hard to believe that.
He was doing karate.
He was the world champion. I do remember him being in Florida. It was him and Billy Jack Haynes being or at the time it was just Billy Jack being, they were the battle of the full Nelsons over the Florida Heavyweight Championship. So he had a good run there, but this run is kind of not memorable for him to me. He seemed like he didn't really have a place anywhere. He's just kind of floating around, and he was part of, Paul Jones' army, but, it was kind of sad. But yeah, Sam Houston, it seemed like they were, and I do remember this at the time, I think they were trying to build him up. I almost, kind of equate were they trying to make him like another Barry Windham type, at the time.
The thing is about him,
lean.
he really isn't bad in the ring. He's pretty good.
No, he's not.
Yeah. So, I mean, at most matches, and I think we have a match with him tonight, or maybe a couple. I think he looks pretty good in the ring. So, I don't mind them pushing him. This was just such a big shocker and a big win under his belt that kind of, even though it's a Superstar Billy Graham that's way past his heyday, that's still an impressive pin over a former world champion, right? With Sam Houston. So,
no doubt.
Calum, your thoughts on the 6-man?
It was decent enough. I think this whole month has been a turning point for me in terms of Manny Fernandez. I was just about to write down a note about Tony calling Manny one of the quickest in the sport, and I was just about to tear him to shreds for that, and then he comes off and does like a springboard flying body press. It was out of the blue. He did the suicide dive last month, so it was all. I'm having I've had a turning point with good old Bull. Sam Houston, it was strange. It was a big win for him, obviously, because he's getting the pin off the named guy, but it looks as if a stiff breeze could have knocked him over. There's just there's nothing about the guy, and you missed his big moment as well because they panned out to the chaos that was happening in the ring, and it just happened behind. Like it was almost as if
it was like a ghost pin, right?
Yeah, it was almost as like in the Wile E. Coyote cartoon where they have they're having all the Looney Tunes where they're fighting and they're just in this ball of dust, and all of a sudden behind you see Sam Houston pin Billy Graham. I didn't see that. Obviously, I think Billy Graham was just around because he's a name just now, because that's like it's the first we've seen him, and all he did was come in, tag in, take a cross body, and then get pinned. But they're using him as best they can, I suppose. I don't think he's got much long left in the ring, does he?
We have him here for the next few months, but I think at this point he's name value, and I think it's a good way to utilize him. Even though I know there's varying opinions on Sam Houston, and yes, I think maybe it was the last pod where Dr. G and I said he needed two or three steaks because you just made the comment about him, the wind blowing him over. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I think it's a good spot for Graham's to put over Sam Houston. If you're going to put him over with him. I thought that was a good move for him. So, all right. So with that, we are coming to my favorite match, I'm sure, Jones versus Valiant in a dog collar match. The build to this was really, really good, by the way. I think if you remember the Boogie Kid and that whole scenario from the June pod. So it was really well built. So Solely sells. Sometimes a manager oversteps his boundaries, which I liked. He must pay the price. Then he recaps the Valiant Jones feud in the video of what we have seen on our last two shows. And I thought Sully sold it very well. After says Jones insisted Butcher be with him, so Valiant brought out Buzz Tyler with him. He says feud has been going on a long time and doesn't seem to be an end in sight. And then we cut to the match where the ref is trying to get Jones to put on the collar, but Jones tries to put it on the Butcher. And then Tyler charges Jones and puts the collar on his neck. And then we go right at it. So, Jimmy Valiant's not much of a wrestler. He's a lot of punches. He's a lot of kicks. He's a lot of chops. But I thought, and I dare I say this, Paul Jones had some good inventiveness. Valiant repeatedly just punches Jones. Valiant hits the sleeper. Butcher comes in, and Valiant attacks. Jones tries to hit Valiant from behind with the chain, but he hits Abdullah instead. Jones falls for the collision, and Valiant hits the elbow, and he wins. So not much to the match except a lot of punching and kicking, but I thought Jones kind of brought his part of this, and a lot of people thought Valiant was just going to dominate him. The crowd goes nuts. Butcher hits Valiant with a foreign object, and then Tyler runs in for the save with the chair. So we'll go around the horn again. So, Dr. G, what'd you think about the dog collar match?
Well, it was like, okay, about time this is here. We've been hearing about this. Paul Jones was a decent wrestler. I think he had a neck injury or a back injury that actually took him out of the game because he was a former Mid-Atlantic champion, I remember. When I was watching
U.S. champion, former TV champion, everything except world champion.
Yeah. So he was pretty decent wrestler. So you knew that that he could. Obviously, with him being a manager, they weren't going to make him up to that standard, but they were going to make him at least get something in there where it wasn't going to be a total domination by Jimmy Valiant. Again, it's one of those feuds you kind of like, wow, how many years is this going to go on with these two?
And it ain't over.
And it's not, no. But, Jimmy Valiant is really over. I mean, listen, say what you want. He was on the card because he was over. Fans loved him. And, maybe we don't get it, but others did. So, the match itself was, it is what it is for what, for what it was, dog collar. It wasn't, you weren't going to get, a 5-star match out of this.
Well, I thought it was a suitable end to what we thought would have been the end to the feud.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
If it was going to be at a true end of the feud, it would have been great.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not that lucky.
No, but it was good. It was decent. I mean, I'm not putting it down in any way. I just, again, it's who you're into. We're not big Jimmy Boogie Woogie Valiant fans. I guess he won't be listening to this podcast anytime soon, but he was over, so you have to give him credit for that. And Paul Jones is, like I said, when you're a kid, he's annoying. You want to you just want to punch him in the face, but he's doing his job. I
think he's a prick.
Good.
He's a prick. He's a good prick.
He is. He is. I love when he goes crazy. He's hysterical when he starts losing his mind.
Yeah, and the other thing about this for me is Buzz Tyler. We still haven't really seen a Buzz Tyler match, and he's your Mid-Atlantic champion. So I think it's time to move on and put someone else in that role because we have received very little of this guy at all.
I barely remember him. I may remember the name and all that, but I barely remember him, to be honest with you.
There's a reason for it based on what we've seen so far, I'm sure. So,
Exactly.
All right, Calum, your thoughts?
I was the first note I've got was I can almost picture you and Shay Kid when you were watching this going, "Did they put the main event on in the middle of the card? What's this all about?"
You're wrong.
But I was pleasantly surprised by Paul Jones. I thought he was really good in the whole thing.
I have that on tape now, right?
I'm more than happy. I'm not comparing him to Ric Flair. Who would be so silly? But I thought he was really good. He played his role to perfection on here. From doing I did burst out laughing when he made the beeline for Abdullah to try and put the collar on him. And then obviously he looked good when he was dominating. As as much as he could, as much as a manager's going to dominate. But he did look really good. And another one of the ones which I genuinely do wish that I could have seen a wee bit more of. I don't know we saw, and they've done a good thing by just cutting down a lot of the tediousness beforehand. But I think it could have been a wee bit better if we saw a wee bit more of it. So there you go. You have that on tape. I wanted to see more Paul Jones in this one.
Don't worry, you'll get plenty of Paul Jones coming up, so you'll get your fill. I guarantee it. Ben, your thoughts on the dog collar match?
So here on Place to Be Nation, we celebrate all things pop culture and the 80s, don't we? Here on an 80s podcast. You know how something should stay in the 80s, Sean?
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling about this match. This is my first sort of experience watching Mr. Valiant. Not exactly the greatest, I would say. You know, a guy who's basically Michael Hayes and JYD's love child.
That's a good comparison.
You know, it was very basic, very plodding. You kind of wish that was the end of the feud. I know you guys have had to deal with it. We've got a bit more to deal with tonight of it. It should have been the end, and it wasn't the end.
No, I enjoyed the build to it, but unfortunately it's not the end. And if we could have a good build and just kind of keep the matches in the arenas, I'd probably be happy for the most part. But it is what it is. It's a good suitable match for the feud they're in. Unfortunately, it's not the end, and we will have more of them to come. So
yeah.
All right.
Just to piggyback what everybody else has said as well. I can't deny the guy's not over though. That, you know, he's got molten crowd eat, that bloke.
Yes, unbelievable crowd. The crowd just loves the guy. So just like a lot of these folks in Crocket that you just scratch your head sometimes and go, wow, I can't believe this. All right, so our next match is a big one. Your AWA World Tag Team Champions, the Road Warriors, versus the NWA Tag Team Champions, the Russians, and this one's for the NWA World Tag Team titles. Really big match feel here. Your two primary tag team champions, and we haven't talked a lot about Pro Wrestling USA, but that was when the AWA, the NWA, Memphis, they all tried to come together as one kind of gel together kind of scenario to battle Vince McMahon, who was buying up all the territories. It was very short-lived. But this is the product of that, where we get these two main teams, two of the best in the world. They are two of the best in the world going at it. So I like Sully opening up. He says World War III would be fought with nuclear weapons and no one surviving. And tonight, 32,000 fans would see the next closest thing. I thought that was a pretty good sell, selling the Russians against the Road Warriors. And then we go to the match open, Hawk dominating. He gets a power slam, a top rope slam. He does a rope throw, fist drop. He's head to mat. Tony calls him the Hawk, which reminded me of the Bret Hart, as you know. So I like that early on, they're calling him the Hawk. There's a kick and choke and bite to Ivan, another press slam. Animal comes in, drops an elbow into a headlock. Animal spits at Khrushchev. And Hawk starts fighting while Ivan is down in Animal headlock. And later in the match, Animal lifts Ivan for a double choke, but he gets nailed by Crusher. So Ivan tags in and beats up Animal some more by taunting Hawk. Ivan and Crusher, really kind of boring heat. I mean, there's long heat. I found it really boring. Crusher and Animal double clothesline each other, and then Ellering, barring the nice Ricky the Dragon Steamboat robe. He was in a karate mode there too. He's like that for a little while here. Hawk gets in, slams Ivan, backdrops Crusher. Tony accidentally calls Hawk the Animal, so he gets them confused as he beats up both Russians. Clothesline on Ivan into a pin. Crusher makes a save, all four in the ring. Animal sets up for a power slam on Ivan from turnbuckle, but Crusher hits him with the chain. Then Hawk hits Crusher with a chair, and then we just got a big schmoz. And this was just a big Haas fight back and forth. I thought it was relatively boring for the most part. We got a double DQ, but I do like we did get some blood on Ivan. So we'll go around the horn. Calum, what were your thoughts on the Russians versus the Road Warriors?
This was one of one of the matches I was looking forward to the most, and the fans and the crowd didn't seem to be as up for it as I was. I don't know if it is because a lot of them are quite far away from the ring, but you just couldn't. It was as if they were just they were quiet for a lot of it. I don't know if it was they were just because they weren't as familiar with the Road Warriors or whatnot. And it did take it. It took away a wee bit from me. I mean, it was a good enough match. It never really get going. I would have liked to have seen a wee bit more, but the fans not being in it took away from me because I was confused as to why they were being so quiet.
Yeah, the crowd they were exhausted from Valiant. He's the real heel.
Of course. I mean, when you have seen the Nature Boy Paul Jones in before, I mean, this is a cool down match, but it was a strange match for the lack of reaction. But I mean, I liked it because it's our first sight of the Road Warriors, and we know what that's going to bring in the not too distant future, hopefully.
All right, excellent. Ben, your thoughts?
This was your Jim Ross trademark slobber knocker of the night. I'm glad you mentioned D-Hawk and D-Animal because I also made the same note. So thanks for that. I'm glad I wasn't the only one who picked up on that. But yeah, I was really impressed by some of the power moves on display in this match, particularly from Animal. It was my first time watching the Russians as a team. They really impressed me as well. Yeah, really, really enjoyed this. Just this little bit that we got to see. Obviously with the double DQ, it, leads the way hopefully to more matches. Obviously, as we're going to get to, they're not necessarily going to be for the tag titles, but hopefully we get to see some more matches from them.
Yeah, it is a good matchup, and I agree. I think there's a lot of good stiff power moves. The only thing I guess I didn't like, I felt like there was like a long heat segment that went on a little too long, but I agree with you for the most part. I thought it was a good Haas fight. Dr. G, your big Road Warriors guy, what'd you think of their matchup with the Russians?
Yeah, this one, it was an average match. I mean, nothing, out of the ordinary. And that was the Road Warriors at that time. So I mean, listen, you're not going to get 5-star matches. I love seeing, Ivan get bloodied. I enjoyed that. Yeah, it was, just like everybody's saying, good old JR Slobberknocker. That's pretty much what that match was. And that's what you're going to get with two teams like that. That's why when the Russians are wrestling a team that's maybe smaller than them, you're going to see a different type of match. But when you're going to see, two power teams go against each other, this is the type of match you're going to get. And I don't think it was very unexpected. Probably like to see it a little bit more or, a little bit better executed. But other than that, it was, just a good brawl to enjoy and watch, two monster teams go at each other. That which is everybody wanted to see at that time.
Yeah, and you know what? Ivan's another one. We talked about how much we've enjoyed Ole. I've enjoyed Ivan too because I was never a big Ivan fan, but in this watch I've started to grow to appreciate him. He's just kind of the ringleader of the Russians. He does really good promos. He's not bad in the ring. He's also got good psychology. So I've enjoyed Ivan quite a bit as well. So wanted to throw that out there. All right. So our next match, we have 2 matches left at the Bash, guys. So our next match, Kamala versus Magnum TA for the U.S. title, the match that came out of nowhere. It was made last month. So I don't have a lot to say about it. Lots of kicks, punches, chops. Kamala dominated again. Not a really good showing for Magnum, I thought, early on. It reminded me of the earlier one we watched when he took on the Hog, where he just got dominated. Late in the match, Kamala hits 2 splashes on TA. At one point, Kamala clamps on an armpit nerve hold. TA recovers and hits 3 drop kicks to finally knock Kamala down. Scamdar comes in for the DQ, but after the match, TA beats up on Akbar and then hits a belly-to-belly and a slam on a Kamala. So that was super impressive. I didn't see any reason for TA not to go over here. I thought the DQ was kind of a cop-out, but I'll go around to horn. Ben, what did you think about Kamala versus Magnum TA?
I don't know if I'm able to repeat my first note that I put on this, but I will make it family friendly. It was basically on the lines of, thanks a lot for this, Sean. It's okay. So, what can I say about Kamala? He is going to be possibly one of the worst wrestlers I've ever seen. I don't know if he's quite at Dino Bravo levels, but Yeah, he was pretty damn bad. Like you say, Magnum wasn't great in this match, but he only had so much he could work with, really. This is one of those matches that you're very glad is shown in clip form.
Well, I definitely feel like they gave us the highlights of this match, definitely.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And by the way, you are only 1 year away from Kamala challenging World Wrestling Federation champion Hulk Hogan for the world title in a major feud, my friend.
I can't wait.
So just throw that out there. Dr. G, what did you think of Kamala TA?
Wow, that's all I have to say.
That's all you need to say, and that's all you want to say.
I think that I'm gonna just leave it at that. That's pretty much it. I didn't have many notes on that one. Let's put it that way.
Quite the downward trend for Magnum here, going from Flair to Kamala, huh?
Yeah, just not. And like I said, Magnum's always been in short matches to begin with, except if he has wrestled Flair or occasional time. So it was just one of those matches. It was like it just wasn't the right matchup, I guess. And Kamala's had decent matches over his career. It's just this wasn't one of them.
Agreed. Calum, anything else to add to this 5-star classic? I think you're on mute, Calum. Hello, Calum.
I was on mute again.
I thought this match did you in, my friend.
It might as well have done. I mean, I agree with what you were saying. It reminded me a lot of the Scott Irwin match as well. But at least he has got somewhat of a credible opponent. Because I know Kamala was a big thing. He was in world class before this, so he's been around. Completely baffled at the finish. The finish works to an extent if there's going to be another match after it. So you've got the DQ where he had him beat, and they've proved that Magnum can hit the belly to belly on him. So that's a somewhat of a build for a rematch, but Kamala's. I did a bit of research on it. Okay, so his last match and Kamala's last match before this with Jim Crockett was July the year before.
He's in Mid-South. Yep.
Yeah. Do you care to hazard a guess when the next match he has in the company is?
This one?
Yeah. After this one, he doesn't wrestle again for the company until 1995 when he's part of the Dungeon of Doom.
But he goes back to Mid-South, right?
I think he was with the AWA at this point, from what I can see. So I don't know if he's come back in, or he might be with Mid-South. I don't know if he's part of the Pro Wrestling USA tie-in, and that's why Magnum didn't go over clean as a sheet. But I mean, if he's going to be one and done, I don't see why they didn't just put their foot down and say, no, our Hulk Hogan's going to go over here. It completely baffled me.
Yeah, I think this was a case of each promoter not wanting either one of their guys to get beat, and then Magnum still got his heat back in the end. I think this is probably one of the reasons why Pro Wrestling USA never worked out. Would be because now we've had 2 matches with that kind of that stigma around it that we haven't got a clean finish. So that probably tells us what we need to know.
And Vern Gagne doesn't seem like the type of guy who he doesn't seem like an easy going type of guy.
No, I hear he's kind of a hard ass.
Yeah,
where he was. Yeah. All right, guys. So here we go. So now we're going into Flair versus Koloff for the world title. Really good build for this. We know last pod we talked about David Crockett eating the sickle, which really set this off. Tony sums up why David Crockett is involved as ref. We have a few lockups. Nikita knocks Flair down later in the match. Flair has Koloff in corner and keeps shoulder blocking Nikita, but David Crockett tries to push him off, but Flair ignores him and turns Koloff's chest into ground beef. I mean, he just nails the shit out of Koloff. I mean, his chops on Koloff are amazing. He tosses him out of the corner. The crowd's going absolutely nuts as Flair struts around the ring. Nikita is dazed. We fast forward a little later. Flair comes off rope into a Russian choke hammer to Matt. Koloff then goes for a bear hug that eventually Flair reverses with an atomic drop, but Koloff gets back up, and Koloff and Flair go back and forth, hitting each other again. Flair hits a suplex on Koloff, then gets a figure 4 as the crowd goes absolutely apeshit. I put here Crocket, and I think you brought up the red pants earlier, Ben. I put Crocket dresses here like he's the symbol of yacht rock. That's what I have about his clothes here. Koloff gets out with an eye rake that Flair sells like he's been shot. Later, Flair is busted open. Nikita continues to choke him. David Crockett tries to break it up, but Koloff pushes him away. Nikita holds Flair up as Ivan climbs top rope to hit Flair, but David Crockett gets in the way, and Ivan hits him instead. And then a fan runs into the ring and attacks Koloff, which is awesome. Police and security hit the ring to get him out. As Tony puts over the fan, which I thought was fantastic. Like, Tony actually put the fan over for going after the Russian. Flair hits the worst body press off a rope ever. And him and Nikita, they roll around for Flair to try to pin Nikita. Nikita pins out. Then Flair chops and punches Nikita some more. Nikita picks up Flair from outside to go for a slam, but falls backwards as Flair gets the 3 count. I was good with this match. I thought it was good, solid back and forth. I thought they played to each other's strengths. I thought the ending was kind of botched and looked a little goofy, but this is a big-time match for the NWA World Title. So, Dr. G, what did you think of Nikita versus Flair?
You know, Ric Flair just makes everyone he's with look better than they are. I remember, Flair, he helped make Nikita raise the bar with Nikita and did the same thing for Sting. He's just amazing. He really, the way he sells, the way he, the ring psychology. I mean, you could tell he's the ring general when he's in there, especially with a guy like Nikita. And, I think he turned in what could have been a crappy match. Let's be honest with you. If going into it, because Nikita was still relatively green. But,
very green.
Ric Flair,
I'll go very green.
very green. All right, I'm being too nice, I guess. But I think Flair did a really, really good job in this match. And there's a formula to Flair's matches, but he carries out that formula with anyone that's in the ring with him and makes that person look better than they really are.
Yep.
That was my notes
like
and
$1,000,000. Yep, I agree.
Yeah.
Calum, your thoughts on this match?
I thought it was really good from what we saw. My first note is that when I saw this match was coming on after the Kamala Magnum match, my first note was, of course, Dusty goes on last. But this looked.
Dusty's got to dance, man. It's like Hogan knows.
This looked like it was an absolute banger that was just killed by the match clipping. Flair looked like Flair was getting an absolutely superb match out of Nikita. I've got a note here that's just fans and cops, chaos, unreal. It's brilliant.
And Tony sold it, which was great. You would never get announcers selling that kind of chaos today, ever.
No, they would just either ignore it or they would I'd go, oh yeah, you shouldn't be doing that now. But he was egging the guy on to keep going. Right at the end, I don't know if you noticed, but when the ring announcer was going on, going, fans, please steer clear of the ring.
I was going to bring that up, yeah. So after the match, there's a big fight, and the announcer, to your point, brings it up. Everyone stay calm, and Flair gets sickled over the rope, and it's just pure chaos after the match too. So thanks for bringing that up. I forgot to mention that.
But I don't know if you noticed, but when they were saying that, the same guy in the yellow t-shirt that ran in the ring was trying to get back in the ring and was getting hauled off by about 4 cops.
They didn't arrest you for attacking Russians back in 1985.
Oh, it was brilliant. Just chaos. I loved it.
Awesome. Ben, what were your thoughts? You're getting a good little schooling here with this show. So what were your thoughts?
Yeah. I thought it was a really good carry job by Flair. I can't remember. Calum might remember. When we did our GWWE list, I think we were talking about Ric Flair. And we said if the formula works, just keep going with it. Why do people complain about the Flair formula? It works to a T. I do think there might have been a bit of a bit of an issue with, obviously, with the fan at the end. I don't know whether David Crockett is meant to be more of an influence. More of an influence as a special ref, and whether like the fan threw Flair off a bit. I don't know if anything like that happened, but what we got until the end, I thought was really good.
I did too, and I was actually shocked that Flair actually got the pinfall over Nikita. That I don't know why I thought that shocked me, but it did. So good stuff, really good. All right, so guys, we are finally in our last match of the Bash. And as we brought up, Dusty Rhodes must main event. So it is the big barbed wire cage match between Tully versus Rhodes for the TV title and Baby Doll services for 30 days. And our last pod had a lot of build up to this, and here we are. So Sully calls it the ultimate poker game, and it's the dealer versus the riverboat gambler. And we cut to the match underway with Dusty hitting elbow to Tully's leg. Tully clubs at Dusty's head, grabs his tights, tosses him in the cage. Tully hits an elbow from rope, a knee drop as Baby Doll screams at ringside. Dusty is now busted open as Tully tosses him in the cage again, then does an arm bar. And then Dusty tries to fight back with multiple elbows to head, and then eventually throws Tully in the cage and keeps banging his head into it, which I love. Now Tully is bleeding as well as Dusty grates his head along the cage. Dusty nails a clothesline for a quick 2 count. Dusty gets a figure 4. Tully grabs the ref and pulls him over. Tully reverses the figure 4, uses the rope for leverage. Later, Tully attacks Dusty's legs, and Dusty hits more elbows. Tully goes for a pile driver, but Dusty drops him into the cage, which I thought looked really cool. Tully climbs the cage. Dusty follows up, hits multiple headbutts and elbow, knocks Tully down. Dust missed with a top rope elbow. Baby Doll gives Tully an elbow pad, but Dusty catches him with a pile driver for the win as Baby Doll screams no. The crowd goes crazy as Baby Doll sells her fate. Announcers say the Baby Doll belongs to Dusty, or at least Tony does, and numerous wrestlers come out and grab her as she screams no, and Dusty comes out of cage, grabs her and pulls her to the back, and then Bill after closes us out. So we've talked about the Baby Doll, how they treat Baby Doll on these watches, and the end of this match certainly didn't help as a bunch of men conspired to drag her, and now Baby Doll is, quote, Dusty's now for the next 30 days. We'll go around the horn as this will end the Bash and the main event. So, Calum, what were your thoughts on this? Finally, we got Tully versus Rhodes in the cage for the TV title, and now Baby Doll is Dusty's. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, it was good enough. I mean, it's probably the best cage match that Tully Blanchard's going to be in 1985 anyway.
Maybe in 85. I doubt it.
Yeah. But I mean, the ending was like in ring was fine because it played back into, because we'd seen the loaded elbow pad with Ronnie Garvin, so you knew what they were attempting to do. It was strange that it didn't look as if Tully was even get a chance to use it. It just went straight into the pile driver, which was a bit strange. But I'll give them a pass on that one. But the announcement, it wasn't just that Dusty had won, but it was Dusty has won the television title, and Baby Doll now belongs to Dusty for 30 days, as if she's a piece of meat.
You know what else I was, last episode we talked about Big Mama. Where was Big Mama tonight? She went out there to strut her stuff and be his hooker tonight.
Oh, well, she can't leave a street corner.
Well, that's true. I guess she didn't really help him out too much. So, but I did miss me some Big Mama on this show. Anyway, anything else on that, Calum?
No, that's me. It was perfectly acceptable.
All right, Ben, your thoughts?
Perfectly acceptable is a fine way to describe this match. What you're talking: punches, kicks, elbows, clotheslines, a headbutt, a figure four. That's it. And the cage shots. Yeah, that is pretty much it. I have got issues with the booking and the choice of wording, but I think I'll leave my thoughts till we get to the Saturday night show. But as for the match, it was fine. It was perfectly acceptable. Dusty, of course, went over because that's what happens.
All right. So Dr. G, close us out. This is our first big Crockett show that we've watched, or that all the TV shows building up to a big event. So this closes out our first really big event. What are your thoughts on this match?
Typical Dusty, brawl kind of match, especially now you got a cage. Match was, like everybody's saying, perfectly fine for what it was, an all-out brawl. I just, when I think about, obviously none of this stuff, especially with the baby doll, would ever go over today, obviously.
No.
But what I think, what's so weird about it is, in today's world, it'd be like Dusty would have been the heel the way he's treating baby doll. You know what I'm saying? It was just a weird, and I know we'll get more into it.
It doesn't get better. It doesn't get better either in this show.
No, I mean, it was kind of a weird storyline, and maybe I'm trying to think about like what I thought about it when I was younger, but I guess when you hate Tully that much when you were younger, because Dusty was my favorite guy, so maybe I didn't think anything of it, but I'm like watching this now, and I'm like, wow, this does not age very well.
Yeah, when I was younger, I loved it, but now I like scratch my head and go, ooh. Every time I see something baby stuff, I look at baby doll, I go, ooh, that's not good.
Because it's like, usually in the case, usually it's like the face loses their valet, and so the heel is treating the valet like crap. But it's weird. It's the baby face is treating the woman like crap. I don't know. It when you watch it now, it's kind of it was just weird. That when I'm watching this and I'm like, wow, this is really, really
uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. Yeah. That's a really good word, Sean. Thank you. That's uncomfortable. That's it. But that's my takeaways from that. I mean, obviously, I've seen Dusty in a million matches before. It's those brawls. There's going to be blood. There's going to be a lot of brawling, and that's typical of what it was. And it was again, when you go into watch a match like that, you're not looking for a 5-star match. You're looking for, you want to go see a good brawl. There's a cage or a barbed wire. You want to see a good brawl. So I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So I think it was for what we got. I thought it was a good, solid outing. Their first big card under Jim Crockett Promotions. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun watch. It was an easy watch. It was an hour, so go out everywhere on YouTube or Daily Motion to check it out. I think you got the highlights, and hopefully we summarized that well for you. So with that week is over. So now we're going to jump into a very busy July 13/85 weekend. So there is a match, which is really a big-time match on paper. We're going to watch first. It's from Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, and this was taped obviously before the Bash, because Dusty's still the TV champion here, and it's America's team and Manny Fernandez facing the Russians, and this seems like a big-time match on paper to me, and the first thing that came out of my mind is why wasn't this for the 6-man tag title, because the title wasn't on the line. At least they didn't announce it was. So, and I picked this match for a very specific reason, and I'll talk about that at the end. So first thing I noticed is Bull was in quite the poncho ensemble, so they went full Mexican gear wear for him in this, and then Dusty with the red rodeo tassel jacket, which, and Dr. G, I don't really remember Dusty wearing that jacket very often. Do you have any recollection of that jacket?
Not really. I don't remember him wearing it that much.
Yeah, so I thought that was unique. So
it was a little different.
Yeah, so it was a little different. The crowd is going apeshit like they do in all these shows, chanting USA. Bob calls this a multi-million-dollar match, and it feels like a big-time main event for your Mid-Atlantic TV Championship. Bull skips over to Russians, and he fakes his little karate moves. Then all 6 men stand off. So I know last episode I made fun of the Bull's karate moves, but they're kind of growing on me because they make me laugh, and it's kind of a good pop for the crowd. And then the skipping was fun. Bull gets upper hand with chops, kicks the stomach, forearms, back fist to face. I really like that back fist he does to the face. I think that always looks really good. And then he poses again, and we have another standoff. TA pot shots Ivan, which I thought was very funny too. TA tags, knocks Ivan down, tags back into Bull, double leg stretch flip. Another standoff as Dusty knocks Ivan down. Dusty's like Ivan's like a pinball machine here. I feel like he's like the bitch of the faces so far. He's really selling it well. Dusty struts as Bull backhands Crusher. Tommy Young, Tommy Young's the ref, and he always seems to get hurt, right? Did you notice he got hurt? Tommy Young always gets hurt. Dusty and Crusher lock up. Dusty nails elbows and punches and struts, and the Cloud goes nuclear. And again, this is really back and forth, and I'm not going to go through the whole match, but there's a lot of cool spots, a lot of posing, a lot of bear hugs, which feel like an hour. And at the end of the match, we don't even get a close. We get a big schmoz. So the reason why I picked this match is a fairly lengthy match. I think it's very good for what it is, a good back and forth with your main faces and your main heel team. But Crockett did this trope a lot where on their main shows, you would not get an ending. You'd get a hot match with a hot crowd, and then we'd run out of time and the credits would roll, and you never found out who won. And I still have not found out who won. I went back and researched this match to see who won. I have no idea who won this match, and I liked the match quite a bit, actually. So I'm just going to call it a big schmoz, but I wanted to call it out because it's the typical Crockett trope that he does on these shows that starts to get on your nerves as you watch more of it. So this is the real first time I've seen it. So I am going to go around the corn and start with Ben. What did you? So we are ranking this match, Ben. So I went 2.5 stars on this match. So Ben, what did you think?
I went 2. I mean, maybe it's just the modern fan in me, but the ad break and the interview in the middle of the match kind of ruined the flow for me a bit.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the Paul Jones interview, and that was really weird too because they don't typically do that either.
Yeah. But I could tell that this was a big match. I mean, for modern day fans, that bit at the beginning when the 6 of them faced off, it did remind me a lot of the Wyatts and the Shield when they did their face off.
Yeah, this is a huge big time match for this time period.
Yeah. And like you say, it was Dusty actually played face in peril quite well, I thought, for the bit. I was a bit pissed off with the ending as well. Fair enough if fair enough you're doing a schmoz ending, but at least give us a DQ or some sort of ending. You know what I mean? I know the whole thing is we want the fans to come back next week, but if you're not going to tell us who wins or whatever, then why are you bothering?
Well, it's annoying that in 2020 I could still find the result of this match. I even went to our good friend Chad Campbell because he's the encyclopedia. He didn't know either.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, I'm not going to use the "what are we doing" phrase, but it's like,
yeah.
Why am I investing my 10-15 minutes in this if you're not going to tell me who wins it?
And I think that's why I think it could have been a lot better. I still went 2.5 stars because I know it's a big time match. And by the way, I just want to mention one thing. I love Manny Fernandez's flying burrito move. It's not kosher to call it a flying burrito, but I pop for it every time I watch it, just for the record. Almost as good as Tito's, by the way, just for the record.
Honestly, I would say if this was one continuous match, I could even have the ad break. If it was one continuous match, I could have scored it 2.5, 3 stars easily.
Yeah. Gotcha. Dr. G, your thoughts?
I agree with Ben. I went 2 stars on it. I did think, there was a lot of weird things in all this, especially like you said, the interview in the middle, which kind of ruined the flow. The ending. I mean, when you can't get an ending, and they did that stuff a lot back in the 80s.
That's why I brought it up today, because they did it here. This is the first time I remember seeing it is here. So
I don't know why. That goes back. I think I even put that on one of the was it the I think it was the Bass Landell match at first. I had to go back and watch it again to figure out what actually happened there. At the end of that match as well. So I forgot to mention that one. I had it in my notes, but yeah, they did stuff like that just sometimes it made you shake your head. I mean, as much as we love Crocket, but just like everything else, and not everything's perfect. And I just I didn't understand why it wasn't for the 6-man tag team championship either. That was my
it was weird, right?
So, yeah, there was just a lot to that, and maybe that put a little bit of the bad taste in my mouth. So that's why I went with the 2 stars.
Okay, fair enough. Calum.
I agree with I agree with Ben when he said it was very much reminiscent of the Shield against the Wyatts. If you put this match in 2020 with the star power that's in there, you're getting a "this is awesome" chant before they've even touched. When they do the stare down, you could absolutely see that a "this is awesome" chant getting filling the arena. So it was the visual of that face off was excellent.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a note here that Manny is much better than his physique would ever make you believe he is.
Well, no, you remember on the last episode he was doing a over the top rope dive, and now he's very impressive. Very impressive.
He is. He impressed me a lot in this month's watching. The different finish. I did have a note. Did this happen a lot? So thanks very much for answering that one for me. I see it a wee bit differently. It's because it's fairly new to me. I've never seen it before. It does add some form of realism in it. So just every week on television, you've got 4 mainstream shows between the two big companies, and the main event always happens to finish within the last 5 minutes of the show, conveniently. So this one adds a wee bit. It adds a bit of realism to it, and I was going to say you could add this just now, so you could have a big time main event, and this 50-50 booking. You can't have one guy go over, or you get it's a different type of non-finish, and I quite liked it. I don't think you'd be able to get away with it today, but with the internet and spoilers and all that sort of thing. But I thought it didn't offend me as much as I think it could have done. It might start offending me if we see it quite a lot going forward.
Well, they do. They do. Yeah. And then, if you remember, Nitro used to pull this stuff too, by the way, where they wouldn't end the match and they would say, "See you next week, fans." Sometimes they would do that in some of their stuff too. So.
And then they would tell you we'll show the end of this match next week, and then or on Saturday night, and never ever show it.
Yeah, and then and this, like I said, they could have just schmozzed this one at the end because it looks like that's where it was headed, and just done it, and we could have had a match and just moved on. But anyway, I still thought it was a decent match with big star power, and for your Mid-Atlantic syndicated show, the weekend after the Bash is pretty hot stuff. So I enjoyed it. Sounds like I enjoyed it a little bit more than you guys did, but I still liked it. All right, so now we're going to move on to Worldwide Wrestling, and we have a big time match here. So the Rock and Roll Express is making their tag team debut, their match debut, and they're doing it in big style fashion. They are taking on the Russians for the World Tag Team titles. So this aired on 7/13. This match was actually taped on July 9th, which was 3 days after the Great American Bash. And what was really cool about this Worldwide, the whole show was nothing but this match. So the whole show built. They had a great opening shot of the tag titles in the split locker rooms. It felt big as Johnny interviewed the Rock and Roll Express. It talks about this is their biggest match and why they are here. We are here to come after the tag team titles, and it really sells them well because they're coming after the belts on their first match. TA is here for the commentary to again sell how big the match is. This was also taped in Shelby, North Carolina. And then if you really want to put context to this, in 3 days' time, the Russians faced 2 of the top teams of all time. Like, who could say in 3 days' time they faced the Rock and Roll Express and the Road Warriors in their history, in their primes? I mean, that's a pretty big deal if you really put that in the context, I think. Magnum does a great job selling all the teams the Russians have faced and still reign. They cut to Crocket and Dusty and Flair with Coddle, which is also a hell of a sell job for both of them. They both sell the match. It's a big deal to be on TV. And Dusty, again, in another new jacket. He's in a trench coat. Flair's rocking his navy blue. So big time fight feel as the Russians are shown in the locker room after the break. The R&R come out, Rock and Roll Express and Smoke, to their theme music. The crowd is going bonkers for them. The Russians are in ring, and it looks like we'll have Ivan and Crusher in this match. So Coddle does ring announcing, and then Crusher and Ricky open, and Morton dodges many of Crusher's moves as TA sells the speed. And that's really what the gist of this match they sell is the size difference versus the speed. Crowd is just going nuts for Morton at this point. I mean, he's hot babyface right out of the gate. They really like all his dodges. He hits a punch, and then he does another dodge. Crocket says the whole hour's been reserved. Crusher slams Morton on a body press and then misses an elbow. The Gibson comes in, and the crowd chants really loud rock and roll. Ivan tags in, but Robber escapes. Several minutes of back and forth between the two teams, which is really good with test of strength, sunset flips, and reversals. Really quick tags by the Rock and Roll Express as they work over Ivan's arm. Tully sells they really got to keep the Russians down, and TA says you got to wear them down because of how big they are. Ivan gets the tag to Khrushchev, and he works over Rick, including a press slam. David has a heart attack as Crusher has pin attempts and just dying for them to get out of these pin attempts. And they keep working over Ricky. Eventually, they tag in Robert, and really long segment on Robert. And it's really, really great because Gibson is trying to fight back, but he can't seem to get where he wants to go and get the tag to Ricky. And it's really long heat segment. It's not a boring heat segment on Robert Gibson. It's really well done to the point where he's fighting for his life, and he can't just get over there. So eventually they get the tag, and then Ricky Morton gets in. Crusher and Ivan go for a sickle on Gibson, but Morton he rolls up Ivan up for the pin. Tommy slides in for a 3 count, and then everyone just strokes out. The faces rush in to celebrate. I think David Crockett needs new underwear here. I think this is the biggest stroke he's had since we've watched this show. The faces celebrate in the locker room, and Jimmy Valiant actually makes out with Ricky Morton. I don't know if you caught that. So Valiant actually kisses Morton. So, and then Crockett ends the show with USA as number 1. Holy shit, guys. This is a great back and forth match. Long heat. Gibson is a hero in this match for how long he sold for the Russians and tried to fight. I went a 4.25 stars on it. I think this is the best match we have watched yet. So with that, I'm going after soaking that all in. Dr. G, your thoughts on this match?
I love this match. 4.5 stars for me. The match of the month. Yep. So you already have your answer for the awards, that's for sure.
No, nothing comes close.
I mean, nothing comes close. And the thing is, dedicating the whole show to a main event. I mean, we didn't see that at that time. So that was really good. It had that big match feel.
And
even though it was not like an
debut. It's a Rock and Roll Express's debut too.
I know, that's the crazy part. So these people that came out for this match, who would have known they were going to see history? And you know, the crowd was just hot through the whole match. And what would you say the match was the time? Maybe like around 40 minutes?
It was 38 minutes.
Okay, that was pretty good. Pretty good estimating.
It might have been 35, 38. I had it timed out, but it was definitely over 30.
So I mean, do we see matches like that much today? No. I mean, and to have 2 different type of tag teams do that, and you know, of course, you know, the Rock and Roll Express and Ricky Morton especially, he knew how to get that, you know, that heat on the heel team by taking a good beating, and you know, then having to come back and, you know, because obviously Ricky Morton was the better of the 2 wrestlers in the Rock and Roll Express.
Robert sold really good, but he sold like hell in this match. Robert Gibson.
Yes, he did. But for the most part, Ricky always, you know, did the major selling.
Yeah,
and all this, and I mean, the ring psychology, the atmosphere. I mean, I just love how the crowd is so into this. No, is this Madison Square Garden or, you know, Philadelphia Spectrum or you know one of those big arenas? No, but it had that big arena feel, and the show just had a big feel to it. And again, it's a shame that they just didn't know how to do it right in the end, because matches like this to get on television for free, you know, that was a rarity, because you had to go out to the house shows to get matches like this.
If you weren't a Crockett fan before this match, you were after you watched this. There's no doubt. You had
no doubt.
So
I mean, pay-per-views did come around a little bit at this time, I guess, in the mid '80s. So you either had to pay for it, or you had to go live to a house show. Just think about the people that bought the tickets for this match, didn't realize they were going to be able to see history when they went to see that Rock and Roll Express debuts and they win the NWA Tag Team Championship. And I mean, and the crowd, I mean, and David Crockett, wow.
Just lost his shit.
I think we're all going to be in agreement on that award too, because he stroked out.
Yeah, you know, and here's the thing. Yeah, they were doing pay-per-views, but WrestleMania and even the Wrestling Classic tournament in WWF, nothing compares to what we just watched with this match for free on TV. Not even close.
No, so. It was, and you know what? That is, if that's not on your GWCW ballot, I don't know what will be, because
I think we've answered
that's got to be
for the end tonight already. So
exactly.
awards. Yep.
That's got to be top 10, top 15 right there.
Yep. Colin McDougall,
No doubt.
your thoughts?
If you'll indulge me here for a while, gents, obviously we're notorious for having quite a long podcast, but I have written, this is the most I have written for a single segment that we've done. I've got a page and a half worth of notes here.
Wow.
So I'll quickly go through them. Long story short, I absolutely loved this. So excellent build up. It made it feel like a huge deal right from the minute the show started. Because you've got they introduced that they've got Ric Flair in attendance, Jim Crockett's there, obviously you've got Magnum. You've got Magnum going to do the commentary. When they say we've dedicated an hour to this match alone, and have some matches just in case somebody wins early, that's a concept that I'm surprised hasn't been brought back on NXT or AEW, because it really makes the match feel really important. Because this is a big match and we want to make sure you see every single minute of it. Again, as opposed to sticking at the end of the show and it conveniently finishes 5 minutes before. Everything that the Rock and Roll Express did was perfect. It was smooth. It was synchronised perfectly. It was perfectly timed. I've got timestamps on stuff as well. So 15 minutes into the show, so you're maybe talking about 10 minutes into the match, and David's lost his voice already. Mm-hmm. I've got 26 minutes into the show. This has been perfect so far. Slow and methodical when it needs to be, chaotic when it needs to be, and every change in pace is perfectly timed. Magnum, I thought, was really good in commentary, and we've been quite harsh on Magnum when it comes to his interviews, but I thought he really had a different perspective on it from an in-ring point of view. David Crockett's reaction when Ricky gets the hot tag right at the end is otherworldly. He loses it to the point where he can't get his words out. He loses the ability to speak properly, and can only regain his composure right before the finish.
He loses bowels. Yeah, he loses it.
It's like everything. He avoids everything. I loved the finish as well. I thought it was really good, because even I forgot that Ricky was around. And then he comes out. You just see him come out of nowhere with a victory roll. Yep. It was just amazing. And then you see them. We can go into this a bit, but you see them with the belt after, and they have those belts in 1985. And I think I said to you guys, Sean and Dr. G, that how crazy is it that 35 years later they held the same belts and they're still really good.
That's crazy. Yep. It's
unbelievable. Also put a note out to say, why did I put the note that I'm horny? So at the end of the match, it goes to David and he's like, I'm hoarse. But you know the David Crockett face that he does?
Yeah.
It's just he turns around and looks at Magnum. He's got the face on and he goes,
so I caught it. I was right. It was David Crockett.
You did. And just the way that he said, I'm hoarse, I thought he was just going to turn around and go, I'm horny. Because see if he did say that, I would not blame him one bit, because it was that good a match. This was easily a 4 4.25 star match. Absolutely easy. It is on my ballot.
Put that in the write-up. Talk about the match that makes Calum horny.
I'm not saying it did, but I'm saying if it made David Crockett, then I wouldn't blame him at all.
Screw it the way I want it. So thanks.
Oh, fair enough.
Wow.
But no, easy 4.25 stars. Hands down, the best match we've seen so far.
No doubt. Ben, your thoughts?
So not to echo what everyone else said, I also went 4.25 on it. I loved at the beginning how they made it feel like a legitimate sporting event. You know, there was this big match build up. Yeah, you know, we used to sort of all this comedy aspects today. There was none of that. Like you mentioned, Sean. You know, they showed Jim Crockett, Ric Flair, Dusty were there. It showed it all up straight away. The fact, like you say, it was their debut match in the company, and you know, the fans were already chanting rock and roll. They were already, you know, they were so over it. It was scary. it's also my first proper experience of hearing Mr. David Crockett. So obviously I've heard of the man's reputation, but man alive, that guy took a lot of that guy must have took a lot of Red Bull or whatever was available in the 80s to get like that.
Well, see, but so Ben, regardless, David Crockett has a lot of non-fans. I will tell you, I'm a big David Crockett fan. He makes some of these matches. No. So
I really appreciated it, and like Calum said, the whole 3-man booth. You had sort of the jingoistic play-by-play man. Tony was playing the straight man, wasn't he? And Magnum's analysis was, I thought, really good. One other point I want to mention, why I really enjoyed the match, it just told a simple story. There was no bells, there was no whistles on it. It was just the Russians, the Rock and Roll Express didn't so much win the match, they survived the match.
Yep. I agree.
And that's why... And that's why I liked it. It was basically a 40-minute war. They just got the shit kicked out of them. And, they beat the Russians with, I'm not going to use the word, what's that? They beat the Russians with a fluke roll-up, didn't they?
Yeah.
It wasn't the double drop kick. It was basically they just caught them.
It was a shocking ending. Like, seeing that, like, I knew the end of the match, obviously, at this point. But if I were a fan that saw the Great American Bash and saw the Road Warriors and the Koloffs go to a double DQ, I would laugh at the Rock and Roll Express in this match and think there's no way in hell they're going to win. So it was legit shocking win, and we don't get a lot of those nowadays. This was a legit shock.
Yeah, it was like I say, they survived. They didn't win the match; they survived the match.
Yep. And this is the first, and this was good, and it was good. So now we've seen the Russians now against 2 top tag teams, and kind of solidifies for me why they were the World Tag Team Champions to begin with, because a lot of the pods we've watched, we haven't seen them in a lot of World Tag matches. Now we've seen them in 2 within 3 days of each other, so a lot of props to the Russians as well. So got to give them props. So
yeah, they were excellent.
All right,
and
so guys,
I like the celebration at the end too. Like what they showed in the locker room with all the faces. Everybody celebrating. You didn't see that a lot. You would see like for special times. So that was kind of neat to see that, especially that they were new. They were their first match in the company, and it just really, if you watched that match and you didn't really know anything, you would have thought that was on a pay-per-view. That's how big feel that it had.
They just did a really good job of making it a big deal. Like you said, we've given the whole hour to this match. Sold the importance of the match straight away. And I mean, for a debut match in a company, just to come out with this right out of the gate, it was just a great job. Yeah,
I think, like, if you just think about the wrestling we just watched, and stopping right at this match tonight. Right now, this has been a fantastic July so far, and we're only at July 13th weekend. So really, really hot July, and they're coming out strong. And kudos to the Rock and Roll Express. It really showed what a great tag team they are. A lot of people talk about, Rock and Roll, they're this or that. They're a great tag team. This match solidified it. This solidified the Russians for me. I'm like Dr. G and the rest of you. I love the aftermatch celebration. And again, Jimmy Valiant making out with Ricky Morton is a sight I hope I never see again, but it definitely sold the impact of the match. So at any rate, I think this is a good place for us to take a break. When we come back, we'll finish out July 13th weekend with World Championship Wrestling Saturday night, and then complete 720 and 727 as well. So we've gotten through the bash. We've gotten through the main title match we're going to see tonight. Now we can see how we're going to move forward after these two things happen. So we will be back, and when we come back, we will talk about some new faces. We have some Terry Taylor. We'll see what happens with Baby Doll and Dusty over their next 30 days, and a lot more to come. So come back after the break.
Rock and roll.
Place to Be Nation, welcome back to episode 4 of NWA Crock and Roll. We are glad to have you back, and we are going to continue along this path of talking about July 13th. We just came out of a great World Tag Team title match and a debut for the Rock and Roll Express, and talking about the Bash and an all-time 6-man. So really busy first half of the pod. So now let's see where After the Bash takes us. So we are going to July 13th of World Championship Wrestling Saturday night. And we are going to start off with a new face that is debuting tonight, and that is Terry Taylor. So we have two segments here with Terry Taylor. So the first one is we open up the show. Tony Schiavone says, exciting new stars coming out of the Bash. Terry Taylor is here, and he comes out and says, it's great to be here. It's the #1 hotbed in wrestling, and I'm here for Black Bart, and that's it. And that's really how they introduce him. He just walks out, says, I'm going after Black Bart, and I know if I'm coming to a show, especially Crocket, Black Bart's really the one I'm coming after. He goes, Crocket stares at him like it's funny, and Crocket makes that face we talked about in the last match. He had, to quote Calum, he had the horny face. This one, he had this who the hell is this guy face. So that was really good. We go into a second promo. After his match, Taylor was commentating on. Bart comes out yelling, why is Taylor out here, bad-mouthing him? It's none of his business. He smacks Taylor in his face, and Taylor smacks him back. Tony laughs, says he knocked the taste out of the big cowboy's mouth. David has his strip club first-time face, so this is like his face where he goes to the strip club for the first time. Taylor says, anything left of Bart when Garvin is done with them, I want some, and apologies for losing my composers. He's going to teach Bart a lesson. So really quick, short intro to Terry Taylor, and sets up a national title feud, which I don't know if any of us were asking for. But Calum, what are your thoughts on the debut in Terry Taylor and him going after the national title on Black Bart?
So my only note for promo 1 is I'm here for Black Bart. That's it, Terry. Aim high.
Hell of a debut. I'm here for Black Bart.
I know. I mean, set your sights high there, pal. Well done. Promo 2. So Terry Taylor is the most confusing man in the world, right? So he's obviously got something about him. He must be a fairly intelligent guy for the wrestling business, because he's always got a job somewhere. But I'm looking at him, and he's got a decent enough look for when he's not playing a rooster and he's actually a man. Then he looks good, but his suit is making him come off like he's coming out there in a suit thinking he's Ric Flair, and he's looking more like Buddy Landell. He just looks like a great value horseman.
Yeah, he's weird. You're right. You know, it's interesting you say that. He's like in a weird place here. Like, he's a weird presence now. I think you hit that on the head. So
it's strange. I mean, it'll be interesting to see, because Terry Taylor gets a bad rap, as we know. Like legend, he's legendary for being
Red Rooster.
Not even Red Rooster, or in PTB fame, he wasn't even good enough to get a third vote to get on the ballot for the GWWE wrestler. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes. I am ready to be pleasantly surprised by Terry Taylor, but yeah, he just comes off as a great value horseman in this one.
Okay, good analogy, Ben. Your thoughts on a debuting Terry Taylor?
So my first note is, please don't say cock-a-doodle-doo. Oh, damn it, I've just said it. So he's so bland and generic, isn't it? It's like if they could have just wrapped babyface wrestler 1A from the procession line. That's Terry Taylor. The second promo, I really quite like the intensity of Black Bart. That might be quite surprising. There were some very good slaps on display as well. My analogy for David Crockett was, I used the phrase, David Crockett's got that certificate smile going that somebody really smug gets. But he's just so bland, and I want to see where he goes. Like Calum says, he's obviously quite an intelligent man. He must be to keep the jobs that he has. But do I necessarily want to see him wrestle? No, I don't really.
Well, I like the slapping too, but I don't like the fact that, I'm sorry for losing my composure. Really, dude? You're in a wrestler and you're sorry for losing your composure? A guy slapped you. Anyway.
What were you meant to do?
Yeah. Anyway, Dr. G, your thoughts. I mean, I know you probably have a storied history of Terry Taylor, but your thoughts on his debut here.
Honestly, I agree with Ben. Just bland. Terry Taylor never did anything for me, to be honest. Now, he is a better heel than he is a face. He had a little run in the, I guess, what was it, the UWF, where he was kind of a cocky heel.
Yeah, he was pretty good there.
So he wasn't too bad there. But, I'm setting my, I want Black Bart. I mean, wow. No wonder why you were the Red Rooster when he went to the WWE. What is setting your goals very high there. The sad thing is Black Bart actually he actually made Black Bart look good in an interview, because I could say that again twice, because he he just brought nothing to the table for me. I'm just not a Terry Taylor fan. Like I said, he must be a very intelligent guy to have all the jobs he has, or maybe he kisses ass pretty good. I don't know. I know, some of the I'm sure, Sean, you listen to a lot of pods like I do. I know that guys like, Bischoff and, those guys like that.
They don't have a lot of nice things to say about Terry Taylor. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So Bruce Pritchard, so, but whatever. I mean, obviously the guy knows enough about wrestling, but just for me to say, hey, I want to pay my money to watch a Terry Taylor match, not going to happen.
And Black Bart on top of it. I don't really want to watch either one of them. So anyway, all right. So now we're going to move on to something hopefully a little bit better. So we get our first interactions with Dusty, Tully, and Baby Doll after the bash. So our first promo, I'm going to go through all the promos, and then we can recap them at the end. So our first promo of many, Dusty comes out with his newly won TV title over his shoulder. He thanks Tony for his congratulations. He calls Jim Crockett and the Bash greatest promotion in wrestling history. He won another prize, and he will bring Baby Doll, the Jezebel, out from the streets. His for 30 days out later. So I like how he summed it up. The Jezebel from the streets in 30 days, bring her out later. He just sums it up at three little points. Dusty talks about the Superstation series, where he's supposedly going to be defending his title with 10-minute time limits, and it'll be monumental. And then he says there is no other, which he always says. He has a new prize, and he will bring her out here in a short time and show what I've done to clean her up. Our second promo goes to Tully. He's out looking dapper as always. Tully's, I don't know, man. I don't know who's the better dresser, Tully or Flair, because Tully brings it every time he's out too. Tony says it must feel odd to be out here without your TV title or Baby Doll. Tully says the Bash was the premier night in wrestling history, and I was proud to be a part of it. Every game has a winner or loser, but Dusty, you want one fall 10-minute matches on national TV. Well, that's my title that you got with an illegal hold. One day everyone will know how you won. Dusty, I know you can't handle Baby Doll in the bedroom or out, which popped me. I love that line. You cannot handle the true perfect woman of the world, my Baby Doll. Hours and days counting, she will be back at my side if you can keep her. She costs lots of money to keep happy. My name is in the hat. Terry Taylor, premier athlete, and he's here. Midnight Express, U.S. champ TA. How long can you hold that? And he's talking to Magnum TA. Dusty, for you and your buddy TA, watch out. So we're a little foreshadowing that he's targeting TA now that he's lost the TV title, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But I thought this was a good, solid outing for Tully, putting over all the faces, putting over the match, et cetera, et cetera. Promo 3, Dusty's back out with Baby Doll, and the Baby Doll's in a Kmart-looking cheetah dress, and she looks very miserable. Dusty says in a short amount of time he has the TV title and Baby Doll for 30 days, and believe him, he has a good time with Baby Doll, insinuating, obviously, he's having relations with her. I even brought her this special dress to clean her up, and this dress is awful. You can see she is thrilled. Go ahead, Tony, speak to her. Baby Doll says Dusty is not the man Tully is, and she's counting down the time to be back with Tully. Dusty does snuff, carts her around in a dirt pickup truck. And by the way, in that short time, you have found me hard to handle, Rhodes. That belt will be around Tully's waist again if I have anything to do with it. She walks away. Rhodes yells, I ain't through with you. TA carries Baby Doll over his shoulder, kicking back to Rhodes. Dusty says let her go. She goes to slap Dusty. He catches her and shoves her back to TA and tells him to get out of here. So again, not another good look. The fans here, and David again needs to change his underwear, but the fans go crazy too. Dusty says it's going to take a while, but he will get it. David says good luck. To close the promos out, Tully comes back out, says Rock and Roll Express are the new tag team champions, and Dusty's the new TV champ. It shows the caliber of championship people on our superstation. Dusty, I'm angry how you treat a baby doll, and you call yourself a gentleman from Texas. You're what cowboys get from walking into pasture on their feet. So he basically calling Dusty cow manure, which is great. Baby doll is from our home state. Your henchman TA should be carrying her on a pedestal, not over his shoulder. If you can't treat her right, there will be dues to pay when I repossess her. It's a slap in my face, and Tony, you let it happen, as he yells at Tony. So a lot to take in, like a few short 1 to 2 minute promos each, but really sells where we're at after the bash match. So Ben, quickly, where you stand after these promos with Dusty and Tully and Baby Doll?
All right, so I'll try and keep it quick. I have a problem with this whole angle, both from a moral and a wrestling point of view. I think the moral point of view, you've sort of mentioned, at the end of the cage match, and just, it's 20. I mean, I know I'm looking at it with 2020 eyes, but all this property, she's got to serve Dusty and all this. It doesn't sit right with me. From a wrestling point of view, surely, if the heel woman was upset with the heel that she's managing, I could understand it. Remember when DDP and Kimberly had their falling out in about 95, 96? She was pissed off with him. Baby Doll seems quite happy to be with Tully. Am I missing something there? Like, she's quite happy to be with him. There's no issue. There's no problem. I totally agree with you on the Tully suit, by the way. That man is always sartorially excellent, and that's in whatever he wears. But yeah, I don't like the angle at all, just from the, like I say, just from a moral point of view, and the fact that it's ass backwards wrestling booking point of view as well.
Interesting take. Dr. G, your thoughts?
Ben, I totally agree with you on all points. That's what I was mentioning before as well, that it just seemed, the booking seemed weird. It was, it was almost like Dusty was the heel, treating a woman like that. So it was kind of strange. And like you said, she seemed to enjoy being with Tully. So what was, what were they trying to do here? I guess that's where it was kind of confusing. And like you said, it doesn't play out well these days. I know people are more sensitive these days, but I even think in those days, I mean, I don't know, treating women like she's a property or anything like that, and you're the face, it just didn't make sense to me.
Well, and think about the women we've seen so far. It's really Baby Doll and Big Mama, and look how they're both treated. Big Mama's treated like a hooker, and Baby Doll's treated with a lot of disrespect here. It's really, it's uncomfortable to watch. Back then it was great, but now when you watch it with 2020 eyes, it's like we talked about, a little uncomfortable, right?
Well, no doubt. And we were younger to totally understand things like we do now as adults. So the whole storyline's kind of strange to me. I'm kind of looking forward to it being over.
We still got a ways to go, unfortunately.
I know.
Calum, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just to piggyback on what you guys said, it's from the very start, since we've been doing this. So this is the 4th month now that we've been going through, and Dusty and Tully have been going for the vast majority of that time, and every single time Dusty Rhodes has called friend of the show Baby Doll something that's like, it's something that is like cruel sometimes. It's just like, he's called her a Jezebel on more times than I think he's called her a Jezebel more often than I've had a hot dinner. Mm-hmm. So why would he then want, if he thinks that Baby Doll is such a repulsive character, why would he want her for 30 days?
Well, it's almost like it's a challenge for him. It seems like he's trying to sell the angle of redeeming her. It almost seems like, but they're not really selling that very well. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's almost as if yeah, I think is it meant to be that he thinks that Tully's not good enough for her, or he's better for her than Tully, and she does better for her than Tully is, and she doesn't see that. But they've gone about it completely the wrong way. I think we know why. The real reason is because I think he thought that he was more of a man than Sam Houston for Baby Doll. But yeah, they've gone about it completely. It's very, very strange. I do like the sound of the Superstation series. Going back to if I can touch on the promos a bit, because that does sound as if you're getting Dusty on telly for 10-minute matches, that'll be quite good to see, depending on who he's facing.
Well, you don't. Unfortunately, you don't see a lot of it in the coming months, my friend. But we do get some good championship matches instead. They end up switching them around to actually championship matches, just not Dusty. So we still get some good stuff. So.
Oh well, considering who we've got as champions, and you've got Dusty, you've got the Rock and Rolls. I mean, we're going to get that massive Terry Taylor versus Black Bat match, I hope.
We'll get a really good Anderson's national tag team title match too. So wait for that one. Yeah, we get some good stuff.
Yeah. Yep. So it's sounding promising. In the first promo, he is celebrating that he's got Baby Doll for 30 days, as he's holding up 2 fingers. So that's well done, Dusty. I didn't understand why
Baby Doll did a good job though in the role though, considering what she, the different things that she had to do in this. She really did a good job, and really, portrayed the role that they wanted her to play very well. But like you said, it just maybe just because we're seeing it through 2020, it just seemed a little uncomfortable to me.
Yeah. Baby Doll was superb. She's a great sport. I mean, she is really good at what she does.
No, yeah, let's not negate good friend Baby Doll of the show. She's definitely fantastic in this role. It's just cringing to see some of the stuff she has to go through, but she's amazing. She's really great at this. Really good.
It was that Wilma Flintstone dress she was wearing that was making her feel uncomfortable. Dodge.
That's a really good comparison. I was trying to find the words for it. Wilma Flintstone dress would be a good way to put it. So, all right, very good. So let's move on. So now let's move on to something a little bit more interesting. We get Magnum TA and Arn. So our first promo. TA talks about the Rock and Roll Express win that we just saw, talks about the Superstation series and Dusty defending it, and then that takes a lot because there's a lot of contenders. He says, thing on his mind now, besides defending my U.S. title, is the reformation of America's team with Dusty. And the first thing I thought about is, are you done with Flair? So you had this great feud with Flair on our last pod, then you went and shit the bed with Kamala, and now your main focus is reforming America's team and defending U.S. title. But you're done with Flair, it seems like. But anyway, and then he goes, as we reform America's team, we want the Andersons, which, you know what? I'm pretty down with that. But then the first thing that crosses my mind is they must be done with the Sawyers already if they're starting to shift to the Andersons, which, again, I'm okay with. The Andersons won. We can move on from the Sawyers, and I think we're all okay with that. Arn comes out and says he's got a few words for America's team. You want to flap your grab. You are an American heartthrob, have pretty teeth, but you're looking at a young lion of the wrecking crew. I'm old in pain experience. Dusty has his hands full with Baby Doll, and you're real cute right now. Don't let me and Oli get you and your partner by yourself. Heed the warning. TA doesn't take kindly to threats. Fact is, I don't see him jumping on me right now. Anderson, get ready to lose those national championships. So here we're clearly setting the path for the America's team. Dusty, again, hand in the jar, just got his TV title, just got Baby Doll, and now we're reforming America's team to go after the national tag team titles. So promo 2, Arn out calls Tony a man of rare intelligence and can talk to him on an intelligent level. Talks about the kid he just took to school in the ring. Says people are getting behind America's team. TA, you have beautiful teeth. I'm sure your dentist and mom are real proud of you. Dusty, you are a legend and new TV champ. TA, you are the U.S. champ. You are two individuals, and Oli and I are not a team. We are the team, purest wrestling machine on earth, and that means Koloss, Rock and Roll Express. We don't care. America's team will find out who's more of a man. You are the Andersons. So, Dr. G, I'll go right to you. So a little bit better than our last set of where it seems like we're going story-wise versus Baby Doll and Dusty stuff. What'd you think about the Anderson and TA kind of foreshadowing here?
Anytime you can get the Andersons involved in something, it's pretty good. It's funny, like you said, Dusty just seemed like he was in so many like he had, like you said, his hand in the cookie jar. It's just it's amazing to me, now that I look back on things and how involved in things, and he was also involved in storylines in Florida as well. So he was just a really busy guy. But I like this one. I like Magnum. Magnum and Dusty versus that would be a good choice, good way to go, because Magnum in his last feud with Kamala, which really only lasted maybe one match at this point.
Thank God.
And Magnum and Dusty, had a good chemistry. I mean, obviously, Magnum was Dusty's guy. He was the guy that I think Dusty was pushing, to be the next world champ. And anytime you get to see the Andersons work, it's just awesome. I love Arn's promos. I mean, it's just amazing he was only in the business for a few years at that time, because he carried himself like a veteran.
Yeah, I call him No Script Anderson. He talks from the heart and the head. He doesn't need no script.
He really does.
Yeah. Calum, your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought these were really good. Magnum is getting he's getting better on the mic, because he had a shaky first couple of months when we first started watching him, but I think he seems to be getting a bit getting slightly better. But then Arn comes in and he just shows him how it's done. You think Magnum's putting on a good promo, and then Arn comes in and just blows him out of the water. Arn, again, like always, fantastic for sound bites. We're not a team, we are the team. It's like, oh, superb. I could listen, I could listen to Arn Anderson promos all day, every day, because they're just so good.
Yeah, and it's interesting bringing up about TA. If you think about when we started in April to now, you can see he's really blossomed, at least in his promo work and the intensity he gets with when he's starting a feud. And I'm all in. Like, I feel like even more so than Flair, I'm more curious to see him face the Andersons than I actually was with Flair, because that's how much respect I have for the Andersons in terms of what I think they can help Magnum TA with. So that's my thought. Ben, your thought on the Andersons and Magnum TA? Yeah,
just to piggyback on what Calum said, it's like Magnum, you think delivers this really good promo, and then on, so it's about a 7 out of 10, and then On comes along with his 8.5, 9 out of 10 promo, and it's just fantastic to think this guy, like we alluded to in the last part, he's only been in the business a couple of years at this point. Really good, serious promo. I also like the foreshadowing to come that basically, Tully, just make sure you're not on your own at any point, because we are going to attack you.
Long-term booking at its best.
Yeah. Yep. And to go back to what Dusty said, Dusty has got his finger in many pies, my friend.
Yep, many pies. All right, so now we're going to move on. So I picked this one not because it's really relevant to anything, but it's our first appearance. Now, Kevin Sullivan was really big in Florida, and Dr. G, I'm sure, has a million Kevin Sullivan stories that we could probably do a whole pod on at some point since he's from Florida. But I put this one in here because it's so random that he just shows up and cuts this promo. And he's cutting his promo on Dick Slater. So he comes out, he says, "This week, chairman of the board directed me to the 13th step of the 13th pyramid, the 13th veil of the fire. I was purged, and as he saw the exact same words Dusty Rhodes said, you have to serve somebody. Slater, those words ring here because you have to serve me. I've been strapped to the tree of woe for a week. Penance I went through and dues I paid because 8 long years ago, I let one slip away. I set the hook and I have him. Slater, you have to pay your dues and you have to serve me because you stand next to the king, and I have place for you and a place for your head. No one has put you out of wrestling. You've been around a long time, but now I have the power. I mount in your head next to the American dreams." And then Sullivan walks off laughing evilly and hysterically. And the first thing I put was, WTF, what the F is this promo? So not that this really leads anything to, but this is really our first look at Kevin Sullivan, and maybe we'll see him again later. We definitely do later, Crockett. But Colin McDougall, what were your thoughts on the devil Kevin Sullivan here. I want to know about the 13th realms of veils and pyramids.
Yeah, I think Tony's face at one point when it pans around and it pans out, it echoed how I felt, and his face was saying, "What the fuck is he saying?" But the thing is, right? So if you guys remember back to good old B&B Incorporated, and one of the things I said about them was that their promos, they said a lot of words but didn't actually say anything at all. That was what this was like, but it was strangely enthralling because it was Kevin Sullivan. It was the strangest thing I'd seen in a long time. But it was all right, purely because it's Kevin Sullivan. I think he can pull this stuff off, but a very WTF moment.
Yeah, very random calling out of Dick Slater, which I assume was a carryover probably from their feud in Florida, but I was lost here. Ben, your thoughts on Kevin Sullivan?
Yeah, it was a promo where he was saying a lot of things, but he actually wasn't saying anything. It reminded me of those early Bray Wyatt promos, when he first came into the WWE from NXT, when you weren't quite sure what was going on. Totally random. This is going to make Dick Slater even more unpredictable, isn't it? That's the big issue we've got going on here. Kevin Sullivan hasn't aged. Well, you watch those Nitros. That man didn't age in 10 years, did he?
No, he still looks pretty good now. Or even then, when he debuted later, he looks good. But
yeah, it was just, like you say, it was just a random promo. Nothing of any note actually said, apart from playing up to that devil character. It was what it was.
All right, Dr. G, I'm sure you have tons of Sullivan stories, but let's talk about this one.
Let me tell you, that guy scared the hell out of me when I was a kid. He was all into that devil worshipping stuff that he did down in Florida. And trust me, his interviews, even with a feud you knew he was in, you didn't know what the hell he was saying. He was always talking about that kind of stuff, and I don't know, he'd always be the chairman of the board of Buddha Dean and this and that. I'm like, who the hell's a Buddha Dean? Like, he would come up with these words. I'm like, what the hell? I had no idea what the hell he was talking about half the time, but all I know is he scared the hell out of me. And I always remember the time watching him live, and he threw a wrestler named Mike Davis out on the out of the ring and off the stage, because we were watching it in a musical there, and he threw him, and he went on my Coke, all over my stuff that I had in front of me, and he just looked at you with these evil eyes, because we were obviously booing him and everything. And I remember my dad wanted to get in the ring to fight him because he I just ruined $10 worth of food at the time or whatever. So those are the things. That guy just creeped me out. He probably really wasn't looking at me per se, but it was just he just freaked me out when you were a kid, because he just really played that role so well. And but this random interview about Dick Slater, I know they fought some years ago, like in Florida, but I had no idea what he was even talking about there. Maybe it was just to show that, hey, we got this crazy guy on the roster.
We don't see him again. I can tell you, we don't see him again for a long time, like at least in anything I've watched so far. This is like it. This is it. He's done.
Yeah, because I don't really totally, until he, starts the Varsity Club, which, is more towards, I think, the late 80s. I think he mostly was in Florida. I don't know, did he do a shot up there for some reason? I have no idea, to be honest with you. Who knows? Everything was so intertwined in the NWA in those days, so.
I thought it was an interesting watch, though. It was a really different promo than we used to see in Crocket in '85, so I thought it was worth watching. So
he just played his role really well. That's all I could say.
And he
you listen to him in
interviews
again. Now.
And he called out Rhodes again, so Rhodes is in another feud, by the way, now. So.
Exactly. But you know what's funny? You hear him talk today, like on podcasts and everything, and it's like, even for me, because I was just so creeped out by the guy, and the guy's so intelligent and really knows the wrestling business, but it just, again, he just played his role really well. But it was so hard to believe because, again, I wanted nothing to do with the guy, That was at a time when when you always were wondering, is wrestling real or fake? And he made you believe it was real, let me tell you.
Yep,
When you
sure did. As a kid, I could only imagine watching some of that growing up in Florida. If he had many promos like this, it probably scared the shit out of me too. So,
it
all right.
did, trust me.
So now, because we're glutting for punishment, we're going to close out July 13th. So we started with the Bash and the Great Rock and Roll Express match. Now we're going to close it out with Barbarian versus Jimmy Valiant. So Barbarian and Jones are in ring as Valiant dances around the ring, greeting his fans to the boy from New York City. Dave says, "This is what we have been waiting for," and I don't know who's been waiting for Jimmy Valiant, but apparently somebody is. Jimmy's tights on his ass say "Kiss My," so pretty classy there. Jones is his regular prick self, irate, waiting for Valiant to get in the ring. Valiant runs in and attacks Barbarian. He tosses him out of the corner, does some claps, backdrop, punch. Barbarian goes outside. Valiant throws him into the ring post. Valiant goes back in the ring, shaking and clapping like a mental patient. And, of course, Jones is very, very angry. Valiant has a terrible choke in the corner on Barbarian as he shakes violently while he's choking him. Ref pushes Valiant off, allowing Barbarian to chop Valiant in throat. And we all know how Valiant has a history of throat, so he sells it like he's been shot. He convulses violently as Barbarian beats him up with chops and leg drops and headbutts. And he continues to beat him up, whips him into the ropes, does a takedown choke. Valiant shakes some more, and then we get a boring Barbarian bear hug. David asks, is this the end of Valiant's war? The answer is unfortunately no, Mr. Crockett. Valiant starts hitting the Barbarian, allowing for Crockett stroke out. Again, we get another stroke out moment here. And as we get to the end, it ends up being a DQ. And at the end, after the DQ, Barbarian actually hits a really nice headbutt. Barbarian then lifts Jimmy Valiant up over the top rope and chokes him, while Joan punches him and kicks him in the head as he falls to the concrete violently. And he convulses violently outside. And then we get to Jones goes over and he talks about the Boogie Kid and the dog collar matches. He apparently accidentally signed for all over the world. So apparently he didn't only sign for the dog collar match at the Bash. He signed for them all over the world, and he was tricked. He said he paid the price once. Valiant, it's just begun. They replay the angle with the Boogie Kid we watched last month, which is still one of my favorites, where he talks about his zipper, again, in front and not finding Valiant there. Jones says, wish I had got my hands on that little ring rat. Valiant, let me tell you who you're dealing with, a very devious man. I'll do anything it takes to get it done. My men are ready, and I'm ready. I don't care, all over the world. Valiant, you will pay. No one outsmarts me twice. Valiant punches Barbarian. Say you can't move him. Screams, I hate Valiant. Take Barbarian, and he walks away. He grabs him and walks away. Valiant comes out later with a towel over his head. He tosses papers off the desk, and he accidentally knocks Tony's mic out of his hand with his flailing. Valiant says, nobody beats me like a dog, not even my daddy or granddaddy. I'm talking to you, Paul Jones. Dog collar match. I got 6 old ladies, 13 babies, and a lot of mouths to feed. I feed them by winning matches, not getting hurt. Dog collar matches, I got you, Daddy. 5 minutes, it don't matter. I don't care where it's at. You won't think I'm ready. You are nuts, Jack. No one beats Boogie Woogie. Nobody, surely not you. And then he says something about dog collar, 5 minutes. See you, Paul Jones. So apparently this feud is continuing. The match I gave 1 star, and the post promos are fine. I just wish this were over. So, Ben, your thoughts on the match and the end of this show?
I did a podcast a couple of months ago with Rory for Senior Video, and we had to watch Villains of the Squared Circle. After that podcast, I said to Rory, you owe me. Sean, you owe me. This is just hot trash, however you want to describe it. Terrible. That woman on the front row who got kissed by Valiant, I hope she sued the NWA for everything she had. Sadly, that promo at the end means this feud will not be ending at any point, because we've got this previous mystery between Jones and Valiant. This was just awful.
Dr. G, your thoughts?
You have me cracking up over here. You know what? Maybe that's why the NWA. That's why Crockett had to wind up selling to Ted Turner because of Valiant kissing the fans in the front row. You might have figured this. You might have broken some news here tonight. But this, I gave it a half a star on this match. I just, Barbarian's not a great wrestler to begin with, which, that's not his job. He's supposed to be a power guy, but then you put him in there with Boogie Woogie Man, and I don't know. I'm kind of over this feud and just ready for it to be over. So that's my take on it. I don't think there's any more I could elaborate on that because it's just, like you said, trash.
I feel like any Valiant and Jones thing, we could just move forward on all our pods from now on until we get to the end in 20 years. It's just not talk about it anymore. Calum, your thoughts on this trash?
I'm glad Ben brought it up because I've got a note here. I'm not sure the kiss that Jimmy Valiant gave that woman during his entrance was entirely consensual. So maybe that's the secret that Paul Jones has to uncover.
He has non-consensual kisses with Ricky Morton tonight too. I mean, he's all over the place kissing everybody. So
I think that could be what Paul Jones knows about him. That he's got him over a barrel with.
Maybe.
Jimmy Valiant's selling. I mean, it always looks as if he's having a seizure. It could be like slap to the face, seizure, heart attack, seizure.
He's convulsing violently, clapping. I mean, he just never slows down. He looks very ill. Very sick.
Cocaine's a hell of a drug. He must be like Tony fucking Montana. Honestly, all I've got is this. I mean, after the whole dog collar back and forth with them, even though they was on two separate promos, I've just got a note. So it looks like this 9-year feud will continue.
That's great.
So
all
that's all I have on that one.
So I am sorry to end the great week we had of 7-6 to 7-13 on a Valiant Jones match, but I think we needed to come down to earth after the hot start that we had, and now we're grounded again, right where we should be. So we're going to jump right back. So now we got 2 weeks left. We're going to jump right into July 20th. Pretty short week in terms of things that we're looking at. So the first thing we're looking at is from Mid-Atlantic on July 20th, 1985, and the first set of promos we're looking at is Bull and Magnum TA. So we just saw Magnum talk about how he's getting America's team back together. And I almost feel like Bull, they're trying to integrate into that. So we're standing with the Bull, Manny Fernandez and Magnum. Bull says congrats to Dusty on TV title win. Says every time someone new comes to the area, they want to go on top of the heap. He says first star in Anderson and now to Barbarian. He sends Barbarian a warning saying every man who knocked him off the top always rolled down the other side. Tape is shown of there's a Bull versus Tatum match, ends, and Bull goes after Jones, who had come out with Tatum, but he attacks him after the match. Barbarian then attacks, and then the Bull comes from behind with a cane, and then Jones and Barbarian double team the Bull, and that's really what happens. And then he talks about a death match, and says Bull says, "I want you in a Mexican death match. Come as you are, anywhere in the world. You have to capture my sombrero." So apparently we have now moved, maybe it's better now that we're kind of moving away from Valiant and the Barbarian, and now we're moving to Barbarian versus Manny Fernandez in a Mexican death match, and he has to capture his sombrero. So I think the less said about the political correctness of that, the better. So let's move on to promo number 2. TA comes out with the Bull. TA says connection. Says a connection for Bull and I, and every week there's a new monster taking a cheap shot. Not too many people want to go nose to nose with us. TA says he's gone round and round with the Butcher and former TV champ Tully. I don't know where he's gone. I haven't seen him go round and round with the Butcher at all, and I guess former TV champ Tully is a little foreshadowing here. He says Tully feels so bad losing his belt. If you feel man enough, try to get a piece of me. So he's calling out Tully. This U.S. title is not meant to collect dust in a closet, and I'm here to defend it to the best of my ability. Says Bull is running down a trail, a big bad Barbarian, and turned him into a little boy. Bull says his main man Dusty Rhodes took that World TV title and took what's her name, and he calls Baby Doll Baby Dog. So someone asked me if Dusty. Anyway, long story short, he asked if he has enough corn in the field to feed Baby Doll for the next 30 days, which is, again, just continuing this awful, just throwing shots at Baby Doll. He says Barbarian and Weasel have been affecting some. They have been affecting some pain. They want they want the Wreck and Roll Expressor at the top of the heat. They're great and out here, and he just starts rambling about the Rock and Roll Express out of the blue, and then he goes back to Barbarian and talking about Dusty and TNA and the Rock and Roll Express, and we're going to pull the trigger on some people, and I'm going to get me some MDM. And I guess MDM is the initials for Mexican Death Match. So what a hot mess this was. Dr. G, what was your thought on this whole – seemed very convoluted and a hot mess of promos they're trying to pull here with these two tonight.
It's funny. That's a perfect word, and that's the word I used in my notes. It was kind of a hot mess. It was kind of all over the place to me. I was really not digging it. It wasn't really – You know what was funny, because we watched all the different shows. It's like how, some of the storylines stay consistent, and then they'll start like other storylines like in Mid-Atlantic. But then when you watch the Saturday night show, it's something different. So again, I don't know if everybody was watching everything all at one time at that time. So maybe it kind of was like separate shows. But hot mess. That's pretty much the two words I'm going to use for it. Instead of elaborating anymore, I think that's pretty much what I thought of it.
You bring up a good point about Mid-Atlantic and how they interconnect storylines is weird, because they'll just throw random people together and random stories you think they're going to do, but they never do. Like, this is a prime example. Like, they initially make you think that these two, like Bull is going to be integrated with America's team, and then you just go a whole nother route where he starts rambling about Mexican death matches. I don't know why TA needed to be a part of that. It was just weird. It's just strange.
Colum, it seems like they're trying to put too much stuff together at one time.
Yeah, and they're probably not solidified on their booking direction yet, because Mid-Atlantic's always like a week behind, it seems. So just weird. And Manny's been really directionless. At least it's good to see him getting into some kind of feud, even if the Mexican death match is not really what I want to see him in. So, Colin McDougall, what do you think?
Well, the best part of this, I think, was the funky Mid-Atlantic network music that they dubbed in.
Yeah, it's good music.
That was fantastic.
Yeah.
As network dubs go, I think that's one of the best. So I'm glad they didn't cut any of the music out. That'd have been a shame. I love that like everyone has got something going on, which is good, and then you've got main guys like Magnum and Manny here who've got 2 or 3 things going on. But it's really they've gone from, again, I think this is was it last month that we saw Garvin and Black Bart, or was it the month before? And they've gone from, was it last month? So 2 months in a row now they've gone from 0 to 60 straight away. So last month, was it Black Bart stole the belt, Ronnie Garvin's like, okay, I want my belt back, and it'll be Loser Lee's time. Oh, right, okay. Right, fair enough. And Manny's like, okay, I don't remember having prior interaction between the two guys, but then we've got Manny going, Mexican death match, and if I lose, I'm going back to Mexico. I'm like, okay then. Why does everyone need to put their career on, like, because at this point in time, there's no guarantee you'll get picked up by someone else.
And it's so out of the blue. It's just out of the blue. Yeah. It
was like 30 seconds in. This is the first time that we saw interaction between the guys, and then it's Mexican death, Loser leaves. Oh, all right, okay. Ben saying that, Manny's quite a charismatic guy, so I was sucked in a bit, but even though it made no sense whatsoever.
Yeah. I don't like the promos where they go and talk about all the different faces, and they have this and they have that, and he's talking about Dusty and the Rock and Roll Express, and it just takes the focus away from what they're trying to do, and they're always trying to put each other over, and sometimes it gets really convoluted, and this would be a case of that. Ben, your thoughts on this hot mess?
Couple of things. So I watched this from the very beginning because it was only like a minute into the show. Johnny, the other commentator, he looked like he was genuinely happy to be out the house. He was like, I'm getting away from everybody. He just had this great big smiling face that I enjoyed.
Johnny Weaver's a good dude. He's
it's good that everybody's got something going on. I agree with that. But in this case, Manny seems to have about 4 or 5 things going on. Surely we should be like focusing on the one issue. There seems to be enough guys to spread these feuds around. I mean, we've got 7 or 8 different titles, for God's sake. He doesn't need 4 or 5 things going on at once.
Yeah, and there's a lot of titles. Why are we going after the Barbarian when you have, like, to your point, 7 titles? Barbarian. I mean, Manny doesn't think you could take Black Bart out in 5 minutes. I mean, it's silly, I mean, how great? I would have rather seen like Bull versus Black Bart than Terry Taylor. You know what I mean?
I mean, I haven't even mentioned Manny's style of promo, Daddy, yet. But
yes.
But like you say, they were trying to integrate him, and I don't think it quite worked. Like I say, the fact that he seemed to have like 4 or 5 different feuds going on at once, just focus in on one issue.
Yep, I agree, and that's been an ongoing thing here, is where they have multiple feuds going on with multiple people, and they intertwine, and sometimes like this promo, it just comes out a jumbled mess. So, yeah. All right, so we're going to move on to the match from Mid Atlantic. We've had a lot of talk about Sam Houston earlier when he pinned Billy Graham at the Bash and Buddy Landel. So this is kind of a nice little mid-card match to end the show. So Houston's off his shocky win at the Bash. Landel's still feuding with Bass, and he's also feuding with Ric Flair at the time, which we've kind of documented over the course of time. Buddy, again, very arrogant. He hits an arm drag. He hits a knee to the gut, a head toss. Sam comes back with 2 arm drags, a drop kick, and the ladies, again, the ladies go nuts for Sam Houston. He's another one that they just go bonkers for him. He hits another arm drag and another drop kick. Announcers say TA and Dusty's training is paying off, so they're selling that Sam Houston is a student of TA and Dusty, which is an ongoing storyline. Houston has headlock punches, goes for running bulldog, but with there was an awesome mid-back suplex mid-run by Buddy, which I thought looked really good. Then he rubbed Sam's face in the mat. The turnbuckle, punches and chops, grinds into the mat, shoving his head into it. Sam sits up, and Buddy clamps on a sleeper. Houston gets a surprise backslide for 2, and again, the girls continue to go crazy. Buddy bounces back up, knee to the back, then sits on Sam's back for a camel clutch. Sam pounds the mat to fire up the crowd, and Sam lifts up, hits elbow and punches, but Buddy throws him out of the ring, where JJ repeatedly stomps him. And JJ's wearing a very ugly pink ruffle shirt with bow tie as he rolls Sam back in the ring. And Landel hits a knee back to Sam's head from top rope. He then body slams off the top rope, does a spinning elbow and a figure 4, and Buddy gets the win. JJ runs into the ring to block the refs so he can't make Buddy break the figure 4. Bass comes out and punches JJ and elbows Buddy and goes for off the top rope claw, but JJ pulls Buddy out of the ring. I thought this was a fairly fun TV match. I thought both guys looked pretty good. I thought, again, Sam Houston's a solid mid-card wrestler. I actually went 2.25 stars on it. I thought it was a fun TV main with a simple closing angle. So, Calum, what'd you think, Buddy versus Houston?
I thought it was decent enough. It was okay. I don't particularly care for either guys. So it was 2 stars. I'm not gonna do them out of a good rating just because I'm not a fan. But no, I couldn't really get into it because I'm not quite getting it with Buddy Landel, and yeah, Sam Houston is Sam Houston. But the one takeaway from the match was that Johnny Weaver sounds like Mongol, but he actually knows what he's talking about.
He's a very decorated wrestler too over time.
Yeah, so he was much like Mongol at the end of his career, was a very decorated wrestler. But yeah, so he had a bit of Mongol about him, but obviously he's got a bit of knowledge behind him, other than what his dog is wearing at the commentary desk. But yeah, 2 stars for me. Ben, your thoughts?
Yeah, I went 1.5 stars, but I thought it was a perfectly fine TV main event. I did like it was a very basic story, but I did like it. The Dylan and Landel were taking Houston far too lightly, and then they very quickly realised that actually this kid's got something about him. Well, I also like the fact that Figure Four got the pin. They genuinely sold it like as a move of death rather than today where it's just a transition move. So that was quite nice to see. And then you got Big Ron coming out at the end. But yeah, I really liked it. I say I really liked it. I only gave it 1.5 stars. But you know what I mean? For a TV main event, perfectly good, perfectly serviceable.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is what they do really well, is do the perfectly serviceable main event matches with the mid card. So I agree. Dr. G, what were your thoughts on this one?
I think I agree with you guys. I think it's for a good main event for a television match. I gave it 2 stars. What I liked about it was, again, I think Landell, they were pushing more. I think there was bigger plans for him. Obviously, he did himself in himself, but and Sam Houston, just again, one of those guys, he could work with anyone, and really, Sam Houston's a better wrestler than we give, maybe people give him credit for. And I think he actually makes Landell look a little better in this match. I mean, Landell wasn't a bad wrestler, but again, because the whole Nature Boy thing, and everybody said he was the what do you guys call it, the great value Ric Flair. But I think that's the whole purpose of his character, though. You know what I'm saying? I think that was what they wanted. They were really kind of. I think that's what they were trying to do with that character. And the thing is, when you're putting on a match like this on the Saturday night show, you always wanted to have that one match where you thought maybe there's a mid card guy or lower. I would say like Sam Houston at that time was maybe a lower mid card guy, and Landell kind of floated from the upper mid card to even main event because he was wrestling Ric Flair, and where that main event guy is taking the guy for granted, like, oh, I'm going to beat this guy easily. And then he gives him a match, and then you see a guy like J.J. Dillon, he's panicking. Okay, what do we need to do? We need to do whatever we can to win. Now, we took this guy lightly. Now I'm getting serious here. And, so like I said, 2 stars. I enjoyed it. It was nice for what it was. I mean, it's not going to be on anybody's GWCW ballot, but, for what it was good.
All right. I agree. Pretty solid TV main event. I think that's the way to sum it up. So, all right. So now we're going to move over to Worldwide the same weekend. And this is kind of where we see a pretty infamous angle with Dusty and Baby Doll. So there's a couple of promos and videos in this. So we'll go through these and then I'll ask for everybody's recap. Baby Doll is shown cleaning stalls as Dave says he took Baby Doll out to former junior champ Nelson Royals ranch to try and make a lady out of her. Baby Doll shovels shit and coughs in cowboy boots and cow spotted jacket. She wipes her boots off, walks outside to where Dusty and Nelson and a young boy are talking, which I assume maybe is Nelson Royals' son. And talk about Floyd the horse. Dusty asked Baby Doll if she's finished the stall. She said, yes, I did. She said, since I did everything you told me to do today, maybe I can learn how to ride a horse since I have had to clean up after them the last few days. Dusty says, you want to ride, you have to saddle. Baby Doll says she knows how to saddle. Dusty says, well, get to it. Baby Doll saddles the horse, and Dusty says, well, look at that. They tell the boy not to help her, which is just crazy. Don't help her. Nelson says, look at you, learning how to be a real lady. Dust says, by the time I finish with her, she will be a real lady. Nelson says it will take a day for her to learn to get on this horse. We go to our second video. Nelson says that Dusty had to help her. Dusty said, that's right. I did have to help her. Dusty said, this is Floyd the horse. Let me tell you your secret, son. He whispers in Floyd's ear as Baby Doll gets up on a salad. So just like he talked to the gorilla, like in our earlier watches, now he can talk to horses. He says, good to see Dusty is still Dr. That's what I put. I said, Dusty is still Dr. Doolittle at this point. Baby Doll got up on a saddle, and her and Floyd gallop around. They say, go, cowgirl. Old Floyd is doing good. We're going to make a lady out of her. He says he's proud of her. Baby Doll suddenly smacks Floyd ass, and then they start to ride off, and she takes off. And Dusty and Nelson yell at her to come back. Dusty yells for Floyd, as you can hear the cameraman trying not to laugh. You physically hear the cameraman laughing at this, which I thought was great. Dusty yells, "Baby doll, I'm going to tan your hiney." Nelson says they go around 40 miles as Dusty looks at camera and tries not to smile. Like, you hear the cameraman try not to laugh, and you physically see Dusty trying not to smile as they go off the camera. They close it out. It's dark out, and they show later on Nelson and Dusty sitting in a stable, and there's some chiming in the background. Nelson says Floyd ran off one other time and was gone for 10 days. Dusty says he's carrying a load. He hopes he makes it back. So basically calling Baby Doll fat on his back. Terrible. Both of them say they hate to lose a good horse, and then they close with, "Hey, it's getting dark out there." So, Ben, what are your thoughts on Baby Doll, Floyd the horse, in this whole saga?
I have many notes, but one of them just says the one word: Floyd. Yeah. This was amazing. I absolutely loved this. Many highlights, like you say, Dusty the horse whisperer. Where are you going with that horse? Touching the hiney, shoveling the shit, and Dusty wonders why she did all this stuff too. Just fantastic. Loved it.
Yeah, I know we've hated this angle so far, but I would be remiss if I said I didn't absolutely love this whole thing. I mean, and plus she got away, and you see her get a little bit of revenge coming up next month, but I really, really enjoyed this. I was laughing my ass off, and I love the fact that the cameraman and Dusty could hardly keep a straight face either, and I thought that made it real to me. Dr. G, your thoughts on this?
Sorry,
Ben, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say the angle's in very bad taste, but if you can have a laugh at it and just ignore the connotations, then so be it.
I agree. Dr. G, your thoughts?
Agreed. The angle is in bad taste, but when you're watching this, you have to laugh. And like you said, Baby Doll did get away at the end. But again, the booking was so confusing because Dusty is the face, but really he kind of looks like a heel.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you actually like, wow, she got away. That's, kind of cool. I mean, maybe watching it through the 2020 eyes, I'm thinking that, listen, I was a big Dusty fan. He was my favorite when I was younger, but like you said, just put away the bad connotations and all this, and just those skits itself, those you had to laugh. I mean, it was pretty funny. I mean, and you could tell like they were all trying to keep straight faces while they were doing this, because at one point they had to be like, wow, this is kind of ridiculous. We're really how are we putting this thing together, but I for what it was, I did enjoy it. It was funny. Again, taking away the whole angle itself, just for those bits that we watched, I had to laugh. I think everybody's probably in agreement with that it was pretty funny.
I agree. Calum McDougal, what do you think?
Yeah, I thought there was so much to take out of this. It was wonderful. It's like, so she's there, and you can see that she's doing all the excuse me, all the shite tasks that they can put her on, including shoveling after the horses. And I'm thinking, she throws it down in disgust. I'm like, don't throw it down on the pile, because then that's a rookie mistake, because you're going to need to put your hand in the pile to pick it back up again. I loved constantly when she was trying to saddle the horse. They're like, don't help her now, and then they go and help her right at the very end. The second promo, I was put off slightly by. Now, have any of you watched the Impractical Jokers?
A while ago.
There was one of the ones that they were. It was the I know you skit, and the guy Q met somebody from Sweden, and he was doing his best like Swedish chef impression, and that's all I could hear when they were going, I'll be damned, she's good. All I could hear was Herbadur, man. It's like, I could I knew he was saying Albadern, but my God, it was my mind was going elsewhere, and I didn't actually see the Great Escape coming. I thought she was trying to impress Dusty, and then next thing I know, boof, off she goes into the distance. And the last promo, they're acting as if the horse ran away, Floyd ran away, but I'm thinking to myself, did Baby Doll not make a run for it? So that confused me a bit. But I thought it was great. I genuinely didn't see our big bid for freedom coming. So I thought it was very well done. I thoroughly enjoyed them.
Yeah, I thought it was a well done angle too. So a little bit of the lightheartedness in what's been kind of a harsh kind of angle in terms of how he's treated her. It was good to see her get away, and we'll see that play out over the next several months actually. So there's actually some good funny stuff coming up in this whole ordeal. So all right. So the next promo for this, and we do have another Bull promo later on tonight, but we're going to skip that one because we had such a convoluted Bull promo earlier. And then later on, Bull gets attacked by the Barbarian to set up their Mexican death feud or whatever. So we're going to skip that. But I do want to talk about this one. Buddy Landel and JJ, and the reason why I brought this up is it does a foreshadowing of things to come in the next few months when it involves one Dusty Rhodes. And again, shows Dusty Rhodes' hand in the jar yet again. So Buddy Landel's out with JJ, and JJ tells Crocket it's an honor and privilege for Crocket to be here with him. And then they roll footage of a match between a bloody Landel and Ric Flair, which we've heard that Landel's challenging Flair, but we haven't really seen any footage of this. JJ says shoddy officiating cost Buddy the title. You actually see Buddy pin Flair in this match when ref is down, and JJ gives Buddy a foreign object while Flair's in a figure four. And JJ claims the crowd was noisy, Buddy couldn't hear his instructions, and that's why he came in, as Crockett argues to Buddy that he had a foreign object. JJ and Buddy celebrate actually in the video with the belt. But then Dusty Rhodes, of all people, runs in and tells the ref what happens. And so Buddy Landel had actually won the title. And then Dusty came out, told the ref what happened, and of course it's reversed. And of course they threatened Dusty for getting in their business, et cetera, and he'll pay for his interference. But I thought this was interesting because I don't know how much you guys know what happens down the pike, but this is probably the first inkling of foreshadowing of a situation we're going to see play out in probably October with Dusty Rhodes. But him coming out to help Flair is something because they're really riding this shade of gray thing as Flair as a face with fighting the Russian, now Landel, and now Dusty's coming out to help him. Gee, what do you think about this? I find this very interesting.
You know, when you watch this stuff, and again, it was probably a little confusing to us when we were younger as well, because Dusty and Flair were always feuding, and now you have him helping him in this situation. Flair seems to be a face against Landel and the Russians, but he's a heel against everyone else. It's a little confusing. You know, when you're watching it now and you're trying to process it now that you understand things a little better, you're like, what's going on here? And I was like Dusty. I mean, obviously Dusty was booking at the time, so obviously that's the way they always did things, like, oh, give them a chance, show the guys, they could win the championship, and then at the end they take it away. I mean, they did that in all the territories at one time, so it's just something that's used all the time. But I was very confused by it. I mean, I forgot about that storyline, to be honest with you, until you had
that's
us watch
one of the reasons why I threw it back in.
Because it was very interesting, though, I have to say. I mean, I really it was weird because, like, again, Flair and Dusty were always at each other's throats. So why is Dusty helping Flair this time? And it's probably never got explained why that was the case, but those are the type of things they did. It's almost like a quasi
Flair turn, and I don't know. This is, like, you'll see as this plays out. This is an interesting first step they take over something that plays out over the next few months.
Right.
It's interesting.
But I think it's something that I think the booking, because there was just so many shows and so many wrestlers in the company at that time, I think they just kind of intertwined things a lot. They tried to because I think Flair was popular, in North Carolina and some of the southern states. So here was a chance to kind of make it not be like, well, even though for the most part he's a heel, there are times when he is a face, and it's okay to cheer him. So I think they always, I think Flair for the most part was a heel, but he wasn't a full heel. I think people even at that time just respected him so much and loved the way, he went about things in the ring, but also the way his promos were, that he was that, quasi like heel, but baby face, some fans really love him. Some fans really hate him, that kind of thing.
Yep. Calum McDougal, what'd you think? A little confusing promo, a little confusing here with Dusty and Flair.
Yeah, I thought the promo started off really, really good with JJ. His first line was, "It's an honour for you to interview us tonight."
Yep.
So that was brilliant from JJ. As much as I don't care for Landell, it was pretty cool to see the visual with the belt. Just a thought of what could have been for him, but we kind of have an idea what happens there. The thing with Flair is, and I mentioned it in I think I've got a note about it on a promo for the next show that we do. He doesn't really, I think I mentioned it last month as well when they shifted from Magnum to Nikita. They don't actually. Flair doesn't change much what he does. He just gets slight mannerism changes that he can be a face or a heel, and he can flick it like a switch because it's just subtle wee things that he does. He's not a dastardly heel, and he's not a white meat babyface. He's Ric Flair, and he'll say pretty much the same things, but when he's a heel, he's a cocky heel, and he's the jet flying, limousine riding, kiss stealing, wheeling dealing son of a gun. When he says that, you hate him because he's a cocky so and so. But when he says it, he's like everyone's hero when he's a babyface. So it's just he's in a unique position where he can be the same character, and he's been the same character for over 30 years. But he doesn't need to change much for who he's facing, and he can make it work as a face or a heel. But it's very strange dynamic with him and Dusty or Dusty coming to help him, because that must be one of the few times that they ever did that.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a hidden kind of promo. Like if you turned away for a minute, you would have missed this whole thing, and it's just really different and odd. And I feel like you could have easily missed this on a watch if you were just looking at it in passing. So Ben, what'd you think on this?
Going back to something we said earlier about Manny, you can amplify it multiply it 5-10 times for Dusty. Like, how many feuds does one man need to be involved in? You know what I mean? But yeah, as a historical curiosity, it was very cool to see them both together. But it's a bit like if Thanos joined the Avengers. One of these things does not belong with the other. But yeah, it was a fine promo, as well. I think Landau and Dylan don't get the credit they deserve as a pairing.
I agree. And again, this was a nice little, I never thought I'd see Landau holding the NWA World title, let alone Dusty coming out and helping Flair keep the belt. So I thought this was a nice little nugget to find on Mid-Atlantic. So I thought that was pretty cool. So, all right, so that's going to end our watch for that week, and we're going to move on to our last week of July 27th, 1985. And we're going to start out with Mid-Atlantic. So we have a promo, and then we have a match. So the promo is Dusty, and Dusty's out, and this is right after, I guess, some time after the Floyd incident. He's out, and Bob says, "Dusty, it looked like you were making progress on Baby Doll." Dusty says, "I haven't seen her. She has run off. She broke down 10-year-old Floyd somewhere in the wilderness. My contract says 30 days I get in my agreement. I've barely tipped the iceberg. Out of kindness of my heart, I taught her how to ride a horse, and then she bailed, and I said she was doing good, darling. You got a horse, and you made 2 circles, and you rode off." Bob says, "Tully must be behind it." Dusty says, "I'm left with no valet." Then he names all the faces, which, again, why do they always do this? And says, "Dusty Rhodes, the legend himself and TV champ, has no equal. The wrestling world revolves around him." And it's like Dr. G talked about. he almost seems like a heel in the way he's talking about himself. Like, this is a total heel promo when he says, this is, the world revolves around me. He says, my heart is broken. I was trying to get the Jezebel off the street. I heard people call her a communist. Heart is broken, risky business. Totally TV title belongs to me, and you will pay for it down the road. So, again, I'm not feeling any sympathy for Dusty. I'm glad Baby Doll got away, and this is just an odd promo. Ben, your thoughts on the follow-up promo from the Floyd incident from Dusty?
I honestly think, like, in Dusty's head, Dusty the man, the booker as well, he actually thinks he's in the right here. Like you say, Sean, it was a total heel promo, but in his head, he's like thinking he's the biggest babyface going, which, obviously, arguably, he probably is. But it was just a very weird promo, I thought.
Me too. I agree. Dr. G, your thoughts?
I agree. Again, maybe when we were younger, especially if we were Dusty fans, we didn't realize it. But now watching it now, it's like, wow, he actually has some heel tendencies going on there. It just this whole thing just seems so strange to me that, to me now, looking at it now, Baby Doll's the one you're rooting for in all this more than you are Dusty. And that's strange for me to even say that, but that's really the way this looks to me. The way he's, portraying himself. It's like you almost wonder, was it, because he was the booker, was he trying to, like, just test to see, hey, maybe let me show some of my heelish tendencies. Maybe I could do this. Maybe I could be a heel. I mean, he was a heel in the beginning of his career, but for the most part, he was probably the biggest face in the last, 10 years.
So it's interesting, Dr. G, you and I mean, obviously you and I are the ones who have been watching this, when we were younger. So it's interesting how our opinions have evolved of, in the moment when we watched this as kids to what we look at it now, and we have very different perspectives. I find that part of the interest in watching these shows now.
No doubt, because you're picking up on things that we didn't pick up on at that time because we've experienced so many different types of wrestling since that time. We're older, we could process it a little bit easier, and like when you're listening to him, you're like, wow, if you turn that on, say you were watching television and you just turned that on in the middle of it, you would have thought that guy was the heel. Like, if you didn't know and you didn't know much about wrestling and you were just, tuning in, be like, wow, this guy's kind of a jerk.
Yeah, and I was getting that feeling too.
That's not the way he was being portrayed as a character on the show. He was supposed to be the big face in the NWA. But really, if you turned that on in the middle of it and you didn't know much about wrestling, or you hadn't watched wrestling in a while, you'd be like, wow, that guy's a really good heel.
Yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic, and I share a lot of your thoughts. So it's interesting as we watch this. Like I said, as our dynamics have shifted since we were kids, it's really cool to kind of see. Calum, your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with them. I agree with what the guys are saying. It's first, and he is coming across as the guy that you're not meant to root for. Like, if you turned on any TV show or watching any film and the main guy says the whole world revolves around me, he's the guy that you want to have his get his comeuppance toward at the end. It's even more astounding because he's the one that's booking this. So he's in his own mind that he probably thinks the whole world revolves around him, and he thinks this is to get people on his side, and goes, I'm the biggest thing in the world right now. But it's not. It doesn't. The execution. Remember, the idea was great, but the execution was pretty poor of it, and it's even more baffling because he's the one that's booking this, and he knows where he wants to go, and he's just not. This is a bump in the road for him because it's not worked. I'm afraid, in my opinion, anyway.
Yep.
One more thing I would like to add, Sean. Guess what? The common man can be a bit of a dick as well.
Yes, he can, and he is. This is just had that. Like I said, it's this interesting dynamic to watch this with a new set of eyes. It's Dusty the heel. It's interesting in my head. But anyway, all right. So because we're glutton for punishment, we now have another Jimmy Valiant match that we are going to watch. And it's Manny Fernandez and Valiant versus Barbarian and Graham. So Paul Jones Army versus Bull and Valiant. So it's perfect time to watch it. So Valiant leads the crowd in the Weasel chant. Valiant bounces and paces around and hugs the Bull. Bull starts off with Billy Graham, and he hits a back fist on the Superstar. Again, I love his back fist. Valiant and Bull slap hands and bump butts to crowd delight, so I didn't need to see the Bull and Valiant bump each other's asses. But the crowd loves it. Valiant then kisses Tommy Young, so now we also have another kiss. Now we have Tommy Young. And then I said Bull, I called Raging Bull Mr. Miyagi poses, as he does every match, as Jimmy grabs the ropes and shakes his legs in and out. Bob says Bull really turned Boogeyman on. I don't know if you caught that comment. Bull throws Barbarian to the rope off a headlock into a Valiant punch that misses, but he sells it anyway, and Bull back fists him. Barbarian has a nice test of strength when he lifts Bull up and does a tossy body slam that he does twice, but Bull no-sells it and gets back up. Barbarian goes for another one, but Bull leaps over and hits the flying burrito, which actually sends Barbarian over to tag Billy. Valiant is in, and he pokes Graham in the eye and does the punches, the eye rakes, and just gets a sleeper. And then the Barbarian comes in. The Valiant gets a sleeper on him. The crowd is super nuclear for all this. We've talked about these reactions that Valiant gets, and the crowd is just going crazy. Valiant goes back to Graham, and he tags in Bull, who hits a punch from the middle rope. Then he hits a knee, then a snapmare and a chinlock. Valiant tags in as Bob calls Graham a martial arts expert, which I laughed at. So the end of the match comes where Graham is tabbed back in, a Bull again with a backhanded fist and flying elbow to the head. Bull pins Jones. Bull pins him, but Jones comes in and hits him with a cane. And then there's a nice sequence where Bull stops the attack with a flying burrito to Jones out of the corner, which I thought was really good. The faces celebrate, and the damn building, I swear to God, the building in the ring is shaking. So we have another schmoz finish and a DQ, but I gave this 2 stars. I thought Bull, as always, carries the match. Valiant is terrible, but I really am into the Bull, and I absolutely love the flying burrito, and that flying burrito he hits on Jones looked really good. So I'm going to go around the horn. Dr. G, quick thoughts on this match.
I'll give it 2 stars as well, and you're absolutely right. The Raging Bull, I've gained a lot of respect for him more as I'm watching him over the last so many weeks, and I like the flying burrito move as well. So really, Bull really carries this to the 2 stars in my opinion.
Yeah, because it sure wasn't Valiant. That's for damn sure. Calum, your thoughts?
Throughout the whole match, I could only see Billy Graham. I looked exactly like Goldberg does today. Tan, bald head, the beard. I just pictured 2019-2020 Bill Goldberg. Unfortunately, his performance wasn't up to the same level. The crowd were far hotter than the match actually deserved, but I did really like the visual. Again, so here's more Paul Jones praise here for you, Sean, just to warm your heart a bit. The visual of Paul Jones being out in the middle of the ring as there's chaos around him, and you've got of the fans and Manny and Jimmy celebrating was excellent. It was probably what, after the last few weeks where you had albeit he lost, but you had him getting one over on Jimmy at the Bash, and then the whole build up to all the dog collar matches around the country. But you finally see Paul Jones getting laid out. Was quite a visual, so I did like that.
Yeah, I thought that was great to finally see him, and with the flying burrito, which again is one of my favorite moves. Ben, your thoughts?
Sean, you owe me part 2.
Oh, get out of here! This match was not that bad.
No, it was. Well, okay, it wasn't that bad. Slightly better. I gave it 1.25 stars, but that is all because of the.
You underrated this.
That is all because of the Bull. Yeah, and I loved that post-match beatdown at the end as well. That bit was really cool.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll go with you. I think you're wrong on that. I think the Bull deserved better, but What do I know? I give Kaz Hayashi matches 2.5 stars. So we're gonna move
Hey,
on.
I gave Brett and Sting one of the 3/4 or whatever it was, so that's fine.
Yeah, so both of us are wrong on some level here, so we'll meet in the middle. So we're gonna move on to Worldwide Wrestling from July 27th. So we open with Tully Blanchard, and shockingly, he's out with the U.S. title in hand, and apparently he won the title for Magnum on July 21st at the Charlotte Coliseum. So, we saw some foreshadowing when Magnum was calling him out, and here we are. A few weeks after losing the TV title, Tully is now our U.S. champion. Tony says he won the title this past week. Again, Tully's dressed to the nines, displaying his belt. Tony runs down the show, mentions Baby Doll, and Tully says she sure can ride a horse, can't she? Tully says the U.S. title is only second to the world title held by Flair. Says TA was undefeated over a year. Flair didn't pin him. No one pinned him. He's wrestled many long matches and pinned many men with that belly-to-belly. I've been in many tough battles with TA, but my daddy said cream always rises to the top, and that's what I've done. I was longest reigning TV champ, and I'll be longest reigning U.S. champ that anyone has ever seen. Anytime you see me on TV, I'll have this belt. Get used to it. So promo number 2, TA comes out. His right eye on the side of his face is banged and taped up. Tony says he doesn't look too well. He absolutely can't feel too well. TA says, real obviously looking at him, he's been through a lot in the last week. Not only lose my U.S. title, but while doing a promo for Philly TV crew, he was jumped by the Andersons. They tried to end his career. All these, and again, that's another great foreshadowing of when Arn cut that promo several weeks ago that said, don't get left alone. He goes, all these things are fine and well, and he can live with, but he's had time to review the film of losing belt, and then we go to the film of the match, and it shows TA beating up Tully in a match. He hits an atomic drop for 2. Unfortunately, it cuts away, but Baby Doll looks like slid him an elbow pad dressed as a cop after a ref bump, allowing Tully to do the win. So we're going to go. So before we go to our next set of promos, what do you guys think about Tully winning the belt in this after promo for Magnum? So I will go to, let's start with Dr. G on this one.
Well, that's another thing they did down south with the, to win the championship. The person dressed up as a police officer or a security guard. So that was another one they used. But it was interesting because we thought that Tully was going to be trying to go after the television title, and then he wins the U.S. title here. So it's kind of a different pivot that in the storylines or in the booking. But you got to love Tully. I mean, again, another guy that I'm gaining much more respect. I mean, when I was younger, I just wanted to hate him, but now that I'm watching it through different eyes, he really is a great heel. I mean, I think he's the second best heel to Ric Flair in the company during this time.
I think you're 100% right.
Which makes sense because he's the U.S. Now he's the U.S. champions, which is the the second biggest championship, singles championship in the company, and I really I like that he won the title because Tully looks good when he's having the belt in his hand. When he's dressed to the nines, having that belt in his hand, and just being cocky as ever. So he gets so much heat, and that's just vintage Tully right there.
Yeah, you're right. Tully's one of those guys that without a belt looks a little awkward. So it's kind of neat that 2 weeks back to back, this guy was TV champ and U.S. champ, and now he's number 2 in the company. And I think you're absolutely right. I think he is second to Flair. Absolutely. Calum McDougal, what'd you think on Magnum and Tully in this whole scenario?
I was quite surprised when, obviously, it was a surprise to see Tully. With the first thing you see is Tully with a belt, but it was right after the show started, so it was quite strange that they didn't use, how they always do the wee clip right at the start of what's happened previous to catch you up on. So I'm surprised they didn't put the title change on that wee clip at the start. I've noticed that my one thing about Magnum is getting better at his promos. But I think he could do with slowing down a bit. It's almost as if he's quite nervous on the mic, and wants to get through his promo as quickly as he can. So that will lead him to, he races through it, and that leads him to him stumbling. But the second promo was really good. It was a really intense promo, and I liked it. But if he slowed down, and it could hammer home the points that he was trying to make a wee bit more. And just one other thing, I don't know if anyone else caught it, but at the start of the promo with Tully, did you notice that Tony said his name wrong?
No. Did I?
No.
I must have missed it. What did he do?
He's just like that. Welcome everyone. I've got Tully Blanchard here. I'm Tony Thravani. I rewound it about 4 or 5 times, and I'm thinking, no, it wasn't poor video quality. It didn't skip or anything. He just, for whatever reason, got nervous when that light went on and said his own name wrong, which is not to take away from the good promos, but Tony, the consummate professional, forgetting how to say his own names, worth a mention, I think.
That is worth a mention. They do this sometimes where they screw up in promos. Tully does it a couple times in some watches coming up down the road, which are pretty funny too. So, Ben, your thoughts?
Dr. G stole my point about Tully, but he's a wonderful man, so I'll let him off. Tully is definitely a guy who looks so much better with a belt. The biggest thing from this month of watching programs is I have a proper man crush on Tully Blanchard. I don't know what it is. He's just so smooth, oozes class. I'm not sure if you've mentioned it before in a pod, but if this was a flairless NWA Crocket promotion, he'd be world champion and he'd be holding the belt for about 2-3 years. He's that good.
Well, let's think about it. We haven't had any Flair promos yet tonight. We have one this whole show that's coming up. So pretty interesting watch this round, because normally Flair dominates these things. It's funny you bring that up.
Yeah, so like you say, he's definite number 2 heel. I think in any other promotion he'd be number 1. That's how good he is.
I would be inclined to agree with you. So, at any rate, your new U.S. champion is Tully Blanchard. So now, in the months to come, we'll see how that plays out. So now we're going to switch to a little different thing. So Magnum had brought up that he had been attacked by the Andersons, and now we flash to the video of this promo. So this is kind of an infamous promo for all the wrong reasons, because it's really allotted for the innuendo in some of the words that Magnum says, and I'm not going to embellish on that. I'll let you hear the words, and I'll let you do the assumption yourself. So we see Magnum in the locker room. He's cutting a promo on Tully, and this is in Philly. He's in an unbuttoned, chest exposed to his white shirt, like he always will. He pauses. He yells cut because he stumbles in his promo. He asks if he can do it for one more time, which is okay because it's not live, pal. That's kind of what normally on live TV you can't, but he's taping it. He starts again. He gets going and fired up for the Philly crowd. He says he's coming for Tully, and he's going to come all over Tully like no one has before. Arn comes running in. TA knocks him down. Then Ole tackles him down, and they kick his ass, rip his shirt, and there's just a lot of groaning and grunting. Arn says, "You aren't so tough now, are you, big boy?" As they walk out, as TA groans, and he rolls around, and then Randa guy comes and checks on him. This was an awesome out-of-the-blue attack, and I love the foreshadowing that we saw in the promo between TA and Anderson a couple watches back. And here it is. They got him alone, and he kept his word. Dr. G, what did you think on this attack on Magnum?
This is the stuff I love about Crocket. I love when they do these where they're having, the interview segments, and then, the heel attacks the face. It just adds so much more to the feud. When they're in this time, this is where they built up so people would go to the house shows, or if you were going to do a major event like a bash or whatever. I know that pay-per-view was still in its infancy then, but this is the stuff that just really closes, gets the storyline going. And I just love those beat downs. I really, this stuff is the stuff I like because I saw this too in Florida wrestling as well. It was just an NWA thing, always the attack on the face, always getting attacked on a promo segment. So just good stuff. I just keeps that storyline going and keeps me interested.
And keeps the Anderson love going. So, Ben,
Exactly.
your thoughts? Yep, Ben, your thoughts.
It was a promo for all the 13-year-old boys to have a snigger at, wasn't it? But there was also there was also a very good serious beatdown at the end of it. So it worked on all levels, I thought.
I agree. Excellent. Calum, your thoughts?
Well, if this is one for 13-year-old boys to snigger at, well, it seems like I'm a 13-year-old boy again. Because I was, as we say around here, pissing myself laughing at this. It was the most homoerotic promo I've ever seen in wrestling, and that is saying a lot.
It was pretty. It was pretty bad. It was rough. Yeah.
In addition, we've got the ones here. In addition to the one you said, Sean, I'm going to come on you like no man has ever come on you before. He said, "We're going to go at it like two men should."
Yeah, I was trying to avoid the whole shebang. It was pretty. It was bad.
And then you had them. I mean, the attack was excellent.
Yes.
It was completely out of nowhere. I think it also made it a bit better that Magnum saw it coming. Like, so he looks up, he sees
he looks up and he saw him. You're right. Yeah.
He looks up and he sees them coming out the corner of his eye, and it's almost as if it sounds as if he's almost about to say, "What the fuck are you doing here?" But he doesn't get the chance to. He doesn't get the chance to say it because they are on him before he knows what's happening. And then it was excellent. And I liked the. I thought he was at the very end. I thought he was beaten so bad that he was actually crying, but he's obviously gasping for air and all sorts of things. But it was fantastic. Aside from the innuendo from it, it was superb.
Yeah, I would go with you. I would say take the innuendo aside, which most people, when they hear this promo or see it, is what they harp on. Really watch it in the context for the show. If you watch the beating of this, it's just great Anderson stuff and great booking and foreshadowing this from when they did this angle a few weeks ago. So just great foreshadow booking. And that's one of the things that, you could say they have a lot of people involved in different feuds, but at least they think through their booking long term, which, again, you don't see very often anymore. So, again, I thought this was awesome, and the Andersons continue to rule. All right, so we're going to go to another promo, and it's Dusty and Baby Doll. So Baby Doll is, I guess they found her, and she's dressed in a nice white dress. As Tony says, last week we were all concerned as she rode away on Floyd the horse. Dusty points at Baby Doll and says, "You need to get back in the truck, Mama." Baby Doll says, "I'll do whatever you want, and I'll even go back to Hawaii," and walks off. Dusty yells, "Hawaii? Hawaii what?" Dusty says, "I know T.A. Blanchard, no doubt. When Baby Doll ran away with Floyd, you had her picked up somewhere on the highway, and that's risky business. And we showed up in uniform and gave Tully the equalizer. I knew what it was. I got 15 days left, and you will spend most horrible time of your life. I'm going to make you get on your knees and say sorry to T.A. Be the lady Dusty will make of you. Tully ain't no man or champ. He's got the heart of a coward, and T.A., I'm sorry, but Dream will make it right. You bet on it." So we don't have to elaborate too much on this. I think for me it kind of carries on how Baby Doll is being treated, but I also like the little pop that she rode away on Floyd and went to Hawaii. So that was pretty funny. Calum, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it was not much. I think this is slowly. It seems like it's slowly coming. Like Stockholm syndrome is finally starting to set in a bit. Either that or the time that she was in Hawaii with Dusty, she realised that he had a really massive personality. So it was good. I enjoyed it, and Baby Doll being the good sport that she is. Does a part in it. Dusty is Dusty, so I can't complain too much about it.
All right, Ben.
I like the whole, we know that you, the fan, knows what's going on, but we aren't going to tell you what's going on. Like, you everybody's filled in the dots and everybody's saying it with a smirk on the face now. So we all know, like, Baby Doll was the one who cost Magnum the title, but we're not going to tell you that until a lot later on. But yeah, really good stuff. Really good stuff.
All right, Dr. G.
agree with you, Ben. There was a little of that rumor and innuendo in there, but they kept it. The thing about when they're booking these things, it's like they do have an end somewhere in this, and they just the means to get to the end of how they're going to put this all together. But Baby Doll, really did a fine job in all this. I have to say, she was a good sport, and good stuff. I mean, I agree with you totally. You kind of summed it up really well.
Yeah, and it's the Hawaii thing plays out really well into August. It is almost all-time funny, and Baby Doll gets some really good revenge. So just to give you a sneak peek, you will see it play out in August, and I think you guys will be very entertained by how it plays out with this Hawaii thing. So
some of it's kind of coming back to me a little bit, but I'm looking forward to actually watching it just to fill in the blanks.
You'll feel a little Baby Doll vindicated based on how you've been feeling, I promise you, Dr. G. So, all right, so now we finally get Ric Flair. I mean, all night. This is the longest we've gone without any Flair talking, so I kind of missed them. So this is Koloff and Flair. So the Koloffs come out, and it's Koloff and Crusher with Tony. Tony says he's surrounded right now with the world six-man champs and the biggest men in wrestling. Ivan is very proud they are still the six-man champs. He says he can't believe this. Flair said he's coming after Nikita. For 1 year, we chased him, but Kremlin and I are proud of Nikita. Down deep, we know Kremlin will only be happy when Nikita is world champion, and Flair is out of the picture as the belt belongs around Nikita's waist. Ivan says there is film to show why Kremlin is proud of Nikita. Nikita says only a matter of time, and you go down. So the clip, Ivan says, doesn't show, but what it is a bloody Flair being sickled and back suplex combo by Ivan and Nikita from a match, and then they beat the crap out of him as the Job Squad tries to save him and fail, and Nikita sickles him over the top rope. So they actually beat him down. This is in a later match after the Bash match. So promo 2, we finally get some Flair. He's dressed in a white suit. Flair says every night in that ring he wrestles the best competition in each area in the U.S. from each promoter the NWA has each night, which is very, very true. I mean, he is definitely a world champion. This is why we haven't seen him in a while. I wrestle top guys every day and pride myself as best I've beaten and faced in the business. Flair says it's hard to sit in the dressing room and watch the film of Koloff beating him up. Flair says as he unloosens his tie, it's real easy, Nikita, being all greased up with your big muscles to tell the world that you are taking his title back to Moscow. He throws his glasses off, his wild eyes, and he gets fired up. In his day and time, a lot of guys have told me they are going to take this title, Nikita. At the 30-minute mark, those big arms, and he takes off his coat, the big chest got a little tired, and you were breathing hard. I'm not as big as you, but I'm better and a better man. Next time, Nikita, I don't care where it is, all alone, I promise NASCAR and everyone alive, you're going to be mine. And he goes, woo! And then promo 3, after a prelim tag, Russians beat down after the match their opponents. Rock and Roll, who are on commentary, say they can't take anymore, and they rush the ring. And the Koloffs get the upper hand and beat them down. And here we go again. Flair runs in like a madman, rips his clothes off, and is face-to-face with Nikita as the crowd is going absolutely bananas. And then Rhodes and TA run in to support Flair, and the heels bail. And we go off the air with Flair attending to Gibson. So, again, a really confusing booking where the faces are now siding with Flair, and it might just because of the angst and the hate they have for the Russians that puts them all in the same spots. But really those shades of gray with Flair, and TA and Flair refuting our last pod. Dusty's running in again, and Flair taking the Rock and Roll Express. I have no idea what's going on. Ben, your thoughts?
So just going back to the previous promo with Dusty, I wrote a note that Dusty is a man who should never wear a suit, whereas Ric Flair is a man who should only wear a suit or wrestling gear.
Agreed.
Yeah, totally. It's going back to what we've been saying all night, isn't it? Dusty's got his hands in however many fingers in however many pies. I love that whole. I did like the whole show closing angle though. The sort of them standing over the Russians. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I thought it was a great closing angle too. Dr. G, your thoughts?
Yeah, I like the closing angle as well, and come on, Ric Flair. I love when he gets crazy. He starts taking his jacket off, throws it to the ground. He's just
He was fucking bonkers. Excuse my language. He was nuts. He was pissed.
He is. The thing is the confusing thing with all this Flair thing is Dusty and Flair hate each other. It's, Magnum and Flair, and then all of a sudden, they're teaming up again. They're helping him out against the Russians. So I guess they're showing that, hey, no matter what, we're Americans, they're Russians. That's how it was back in the 80s. So we're gonna come together for this, but we still don't really like you. But we're gonna help you because it's against the Russians. That's the only thing I could think of was why they booked it the way they did.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I kind of feel like they all hate the Russians, so they're all there to take out the Russians because Russians in the mid 80s obviously were not popular people. So that's the only thing that makes sense at this point, right?
That's what I could only equate it to.
Yeah,
I agree.
The enemy of my enemy is my friend and all that.
Yeah, it's a really interesting dynamic we're in right now. Calum, your thoughts?
The first promo with the Russians was fairly standard stuff. Just getting over the continuing of Nikita trying to get the belt off Flair. The second promo here was superb. Flair looking wonderful in his suit as he always does, but this is the Nature Boy as I know him. So as we all know and love him. So before he was, I think I described him previously as he's carrying himself as a more conservative as how Nick Aldis would sort of. Nick Aldis, how he carries himself now was based on, I think, more closely to the Ric Flair before this with his in the Magnum feud, but he's a bit more reserved, a bit more conservative. But this is the wild man Nature Boy that we all know and love, and I thought the second one was superb, and the closing angle with the chaos at the end of it. I absolutely loved it. The crowd loses its minds when Flair comes out. They were at fever pitch when the Rock and Rolls hit the ring, but then when Flair comes back out, and then everyone else, just Dusty and Magnum came out, and that's just unbelievable stuff. You can't replicate that, or you can't force that level of engagement with your crowd, and it was just unbelievable.
Yeah, a really good closing angle for that show. So just could have ended it perfectly there. So that with that we have 3 more matches, and then we're done with this week. So our first match is interesting. It's Tully versus American Starship Dan Spivey. And Dan Spivey, as most people know from the Skyscrapers, was also in the WWF with Mike Rotundo, backfilling Wyndham when Wyndham left the WWF, and had a singles run. So his name is American Starship, which I really don't know the history of this name because it's the dumbest name I've ever heard. So anyway, Tully's out in his long red robe, and Spivey's wearing a headband and berserker fuzzy boots. They hook up. Spivey gets strength advantage into the ropes. Tully pushes him off and yells at ref as they circle each other. They hook up again, and then claiming the ref isn't calling for breaks on the ropes. Shivani sells how big Spivey is, and Tully's slingshot would be hard to get on him. Crowd is actually chanting Eagle, and I think to myself, Jesus Christ, they're actually chanting for the American Eagle. They hook up again. Blanchard slaps Danny Spivey in the face, which enrages him, and he chases Tully outside. Spivey atomic drops him outside. The crowd goes nuclear. Tully holds his ass climbing to the apron. He turns his back, and Spivey drags him in with a full Nelson all the way to the other side of the ring, which was pretty impressive looking. Tully finally hits a DDT. Tony says, great move, as at this point, DDT wasn't really a trope spot and still different. Tully takes control, but Spivey reverses a roll-up by Tully and escapes in what looked like a sloppy botch. Spivey hits punches and knees in corner, then hit tosses Tully across the ring. Spivey goes after him, but Tully grabs his legs down, puts foot on ropes, and gets the 3 count, which is really quick and sudden. So I almost think it was to cover the initial botch, which was supposed to end the match, but it was too short to really matter. I gave it like 1 star, but it was mainly to see Spivey, who I guess didn't look really that impressive and looked really green, and a lot of botches here. Dr. G, what were your thoughts?
I agree. The one word I wrote was sloppy. The match seemed kind of sloppy, but the fans were into it. That's
Crazy.
the other note I had. They were really into it, chanting his name, Eagle. It's like they hated Tully so much that they were cheering, and but I gave it a 1.5 stars, but I just it was very sloppy. You could tell Spivey was green. Tully was trying his best to really work with the guy and get him over, but there's just some guys that are so green. There's not much you could do, but I guess the thing that was interesting to me is how the fans were into it. Like I said, those fans in those shows in Mid-Atlantic, they're just like into every single match. It's amazing. It's not like you hear a pin drop.
I feel like it's because of how over the heels are as just being legit bad guys, and the fans hate them. Because it has to be that. Because
I think that's what's missing today.
Houston and Spivey would never get this much adulation if it weren't for how much they hated the heels. It's impossible. So
the heels did their jobs, that's for sure.
I agree. Calum.
This reminded me very much of the Don Canolo match we watched, where Tully, for the most part, takes a shit kicking, but he was absolutely excellent in making Dan Spivey look. He made him look like $1 million, and he looked as if he was going to beat him, or he could beat him. Sorry. So, and then he manages to sneak out with the win. It was a bit short, to be fair, but I don't think, because I was wondering why. So I was wondering why he was American Starship Eagle. So I did a bit.
He looked like a great value Hulk Hogan. They were trying. I don't know what they were doing with him at this point.
I did a bit of background research to make sure that I came in fully, because you guys know what obviously you know more about this time period than myself. So I did a bit of background research so I can hang with you. He was called American Starship Eagle because he was in a tag team called American Starship with
Scott Hall, right?
With Scott Hall, yeah.
That's
so Scott
right.
Hall.
Yeah.
So for Spivey at this point, who's ostensibly a tag wrestler, for Tully to give him as much as he did, he made him look. He made this no name. Well, not a no-name tag wrestler, but a no-name tag wrestler look as if he could beat him for 5 minutes or so before sneaking out. So Tully is just excellent. I gave it. I didn't know if we were rating it, but I gave it 1.75 anyway.
Yeah, I like. This is one thing Crockett does is they build these guys up to be somewhat mid-card wrestlers, so you can see a decent match. They did it with Houston, and they start doing it with Eagle too. So it's kind of cool that they do that with certain stars. You give them a little win here and there, and then when they face off against the main event guy and they get beaten, it's a bigger deal. So I like how they book that as well. Ben, your thoughts?
Yeah, just to echo again what all the guys have said. There was a couple of noticeable botches in it, but that was almost from Eagles' part. Tully was almost a miracle worker to get what he did out of him. I went 1.5 stars. That DDT was vicious. He could have had that as his finishing move quite easily.
It makes you appreciate the DDT now that it's such a trope move, how big a deal it was back then.
Absolutely, because there was obviously at that point there was no name for it. It was just what a move.
Yep, what a move. So, all right, so we're going to move on. And another match we have on this episode. So we had 2 main events on this episode. We have Braun Bass versus Abdullah the Butcher, which is kind of a big name kind of deal. So Bass, and it's really short, so it's like 3-minute long match. Bass and Abdullah start hot as Bass punches Abdullah over and over to the outside. Abdullah is reeling as Bass throws him into the post. Again, crowd is absolutely apeshit right now. Bass keeps punching outside, throws Abdullah's head in the mat, and elbowed back to Butcher, rolls in the ring. Bass continues to pummel Butcher with punches. Butcher actually he hits the ropes on a Bass throw and knocks Bass down on a rebound. He chops the throat and choking. Tony repeatedly says main event match anywhere in the world, which ironically it would be at this point. A chop to the throat off the ropes. Butcher missed an elbow. I really can't convey to you guys how nuclear this crowd is for this match. I mean, like, you can even hardly hear the commentary in this. It's amazing. Bass throws Butcher into ropes and gets the claw applied. Landell runs in and JJ, and they attack in figure 4 as Butcher drops an elbow. And then, here we go. Dusty out again with a chair and clears the ring. Dusty lifts Bass up, and they hug. Tony calls it a great sight as Cowboys unite. And I thought it was a really great rub for Bass, but again, Dusty hand in the pot and everything. It was more angle than match, but I thought it served a purpose. And I thought it was maybe a 1-star match with a probably 2 1/4 angle at the end, reuniting the Cowboys. So real quick, we'll go around the horn. Dr. G, what'd you think? Really short match, but more angle, I think.
I agree with you. 1-star match, maybe like 2.5 for the angle. Again, Dusty just finds his way into it. But you know what? That's what the fans wanted to see. They wanted to see the baby. Rhodes was the biggest baby face, and that's who they wanted to see come out at some point. So if he came out on the show, in this angle, then it showed how he and Bass, now they embrace each other. They're friends again. Abdullah is Abdullah. I mean, you're only going to get so much out of him in a match.
I thought he looked pretty decent, though. This was a fun little sprint, I thought. It was a fun match.
He could move for his size.
Yeah.
He does get around pretty well. I mean, he was a big guy. So, it is what it was. It wasn't a great match or anything like that. But I think for the angle, I think that's the part that I'm popping for.
I mean, they instantly made Bass one of the top faces of the company in literally 2 minutes. That's how insane this was. And, I was thinking to myself about how much Dusty has in the pot. I would never want to marry one of Dusty's girls because I have a feeling he'd be in the room with me on the honeymoon. That's how much he has his hand in everything. So I don't know if I would. That's how I feel about Dusty.
That's a good point. I like that.
Anyway, all right, Ben, what'd you think of this?
Yeah, I went 1 star as well. One thing I will say about the fact that Dusty's involved in all this stuff is he's at least willing to give a mid-card guy like Ron Bass the rub, isn't he? So, he gets the rub by being associated with Dusty, by getting the hug from Dusty. So yeah, you probably took like 2.5, 3 stars for the angle after, but it was all right stuff. Yeah, you'd watch it.
Yep. And Calum, your thoughts?
Yeah, same as what everyone's saying. I think Ben has hit the nail on the head where it's Dusty is involved in everything because he's giving guys a rub, but I also think it could be in the same way that sort of when Vince McMahon was on commentary on Raw, because he's in charge and it's his vision that's playing out, who better to get it across than on commentary to you than the guy who he can explain what he wants from you. So if Dusty is seeing something in Ron Bass and he wants to push Ron Bass to the moon, if he gets himself involved in the feud, then he can get across what he's trying to portray. So I think that might have something, that could have something to do with it, or I'm just giving him far too much credit and he just wants to be on the telly all the time. But that being said, I've got it as 1.5 because it was not much of a match, but it was the post matches has brought that right up, so it sort of balances itself out. It was really short, but I don't think anybody really wanted to see Abdullah the Butcher go for 10 minutes, so it was a favour to everybody watching.
And I want to see more of Bass too. Like I feel like there's something there with Bass that we haven't seen yet, and I think he could be a good kind of mid-card face. And I don't know, man. I feel like he'd get it. Like, I'd like to see him in a match with like an Arn Anderson, because I feel like that would be a real banger of a, like, I don't know. There's just something about Bass that I think is there that I haven't seen yet. All right, so we've come to our last watch of the show, guys. So the month of July is at the end. It's been crazy, and it's a bonus match. And so not only did we have the Great American Bash at in July, but Mid-South, which is kind of affiliated with the NWA, had a big show too, called WrestleFest. And one of the main events for that show was Ric Flair defending the World Heavyweight title against Dusty Rhodes, and it was on July 28th, 85. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to go back and watch this match. It was also an outdoor stadium, just like the Bash. So I'll go through it real quick. There was no TV title on Dream, but he was the TV champion at the time. And we just saw him come in and help Flair and help the Rock and Roll, but here they are again in the match. Flair is in his black and white ruffle robe, which I think a lot of people have seen a lot. Ref, to me, looks like the principal from the Breakfast Club, so very familiar-looking face here. Rhodes takes control early, working on arm and does a hammerlock. Dusty hits a shoulder block and an elbow on a ring crisscrossing off the ropes. He goes back to the arm, and the match has been very boring so far. Flair backs Dusty into a corner with some shoulder blocks and chops, snapmares, then misses a knee drop. That Dusty immediately takes into a figure four that gets a few 2 counts. Flair finally gets to the ropes to break. Flair crawls to the corner as Dusty wiggles and shakes his finger at Flair. Dusty chops in corner, double thrust to throat, punches and an elbow, leading to Flair doing the face flop. Now Dusty's working over the leg. Flair finally gets control, gets a head to the turnbuckle, punches and chops, then goes after Dusty's arm. Dusty screams that he pulled my hair as Flair puts his foot on the rope to add pressure to the arm bar, which I thought was a neat little twist. Flair yells at people to shut their mouth and shut up, cowboy, as there is no commentary in this, by the way, so this is just a wrestling match. There's more arm work and rope cheating. Dusty starts chopping, punching, and slapping Flair in the corner, which ref breaks, allowing Flair to knee Dusty for the knockdown. Flair stomps and punches again as crowd chants for Dusty, and then there's more chops, more punches, and we hit the 10-minute mark at this point, and Dusty gets a sleeper. Flair goes down, arms flailing, down to the mat for pin, and Flair gets foot on the ropes. Dusty Dusty does the sleeper later on with the Weaver lock, but he puts the sleeper on here, so I don't know. I thought that was funny. Flair hits knee and elbow in a corner. Dusty reverses an Irish whip and a press slam, or what's a form of one. It was a pretty weak-looking press slam. Then an elbow drop for 2, and he misses a second elbow drop. Flair goes to work on the leg, gets a figure 4 for a few 2 counts. Dusty gets energized and tries to reverse it, finally succeeds until a rope break. Flair climbs the top rope. Dusty throws him off. Irish whip. Flair does the flip over the rope spot. Elbows and punches. Dusty reverses a Flair whip, and Flair knocks out the ref at the 15-minute mark. Dusty gets a clothesline to pin in an okay reversal sequence, but no ref. Flair tosses Dusty over the top rope, but he rolls back in to get chopped. Flair goes for a pile driver, but dumps Flair over. Flair goes for a pile driver, but Flair gets dumped over the top rope. He suplexes him back in and goes for the pin, but the ref DQs Dusty for dumping Flair over the rope. And the crowd is very angry. So I'll go around the horn for thoughts, as this is our last match of the night. And it should be a big-time main event for a Mid-South show, as it's Dusty and Flair for the NWA title, but I felt like it just went through the motions a little bit. There were some good chops, etc., but for the most part, I found it very boring and plotting. I went 2 stars. I don't think it was anything great, and I would have expected more from Flair and Dusty. So I will go around the horn. Ben, what did you think of this match?
So, first thing, the historical curiosity of Jim Ross's ring announcer, that was quite off-putting to begin with. Yeah, I totally agree with you, Sean. What would happen if Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes had a match that didn't even get out of second gear, never mind third? Very plodding. I wouldn't say boring, but very plodding and pedestrian, I think, are very good words to describe it.
I feel like they just went through the motions of what they would do at a house show that nobody gave a shit about. That's what I felt.
Totally agree with you. I went 2.25 stars. If we were doing like a most disappointing match category, this would probably be the winner.
That's a good point. They would be my biggest disappointment, because everything else I got what I expected based on who was involved. This one, you're right. That's a great take. Big disappointment for me. Calum, your thoughts? Calum, you there? You're on mute. Calum needs some more coffee.
Honestly, that's mute. I'm never going on it. I'm never doing this on it.
He loves a good mute, does Cal.
I'm never doing this on the iPad again. So I was told that this was on the network. So Sean, you said it was on the network, but given the network's horrendous
search engine, yes.
Search engine, yeah. So I found this through the wonders of the YouTube.
Oh, did you get the Japanese commentary?
So yeah, so I watched it with Japanese commentary. So that was a curiosity, watching a match from wherever it would have been. So Mid-South, so it would have been Louisiana or Oklahoma with Japanese commentary. Yeah. So that was a mild curiosity, which was something. This match was the epitome of quality over quantity, because the crowd ate everything they did up, but they did very, very little. Somewhere a young Kevin Nash was taking notes on how to be a professional wrestler. That's how little they did. But given that it's Flair and Dusty, you start with a benchmark of it's going to be decent enough. But it never got above. It was heating up nicely towards the end, but the end was just a damp squib of a finish. So it peaked at 2.25 for myself.
Wow, I think you had better being kind if 2.25. So, all right, Dr. G, what'd you think?
I gave it 2 stars. You know, it was disappointing because I've seen so many Flair Dusty matches, and this one looked like they were just kind of going through the motions. Maybe they had a little too much to drink the night before. I mean, I think Flair had something more to drink.
Well, they were at Bill Watts territory, so I'm sure they were hitting the bar with Watts. So
probably, yeah. It was not one of their best matches, but you know, there were some good spots in there, and you know, sprinkled in there. But for the most part, it just looked like they were kind of plodding along, and you know, it was like they were doing a house show almost. You know, like that's the impression I got.
Yep. So that match closes us out. So what should have been a big time field main event kind of fell on its ears, but I feel like we started off strong with the bash and the rock and roll, and we kind of ended kind of on a disappointing note. But that is July, guys. So we have made it through July 85. So woohoo. And so we're going to go around the horn real quick and do our awards. But I feel like we could probably save a little bit of time on the awards, because I already feel like everybody's going to pick the Rock and Roll Express as the best match. Is everyone agreed?
Correct.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Do we all agree that it would be a top contender for the PTPN top WCW NWA match? Top 100?
No doubt.
Oh, I've got it that it's not a contender. It's absolutely 100% on there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be on there. Yeah.
Okay, and then the third one I think we can all agree on is the Crocket Strokeout Award. Would we all agree it's the R&R win?
No doubt.
Yeah. And the final hot tag in particular.
Okay,
from the hot tag to the end of the match.
So Rock and Roll wins 3 of the awards tonight. So let's go around the horn on the worst award. I had Barbarian Valiant. Dr. G, what'd you have?
Same.
Okay, Calum?
3 out of 3 so far.
Wow, Ben?
Clean sweep.
Wow, clean sweep so far. Okay, promo, best promo. I really enjoyed I don't know if it's really a promo. Well, it is a promo. I like the Flair freaking out promo on the Russians. The best segments for me were the Floyd the horse, but if I were going to go sheer promo, it'd be Flair on the Russians. Dr. G, what are your thoughts? Best promo.
2 for 2 so far. I totally, you know, anytime I could see Flair freak out and get like that. It's funny because we didn't get much of Flair.
But he won the award. Yeah, it's great.
But he wins the award. He was phenomenal. Tully had some good interviews in there too, but I have to go with Flair.
All right, Calum.
3 out of 3 so far.
Wow. All right, Ben.
3.5 out of 3, because the Flair promo and also the Tully promo, the first one on Saturday night, the shit on his shoe promo, I thought was tremendous.
You're right, that was a tremendous one as well. I give you that one too. All right, and our final award is the fashion award. I went with Baby Doll and the cowboy, the cow jacket and the boots in the manure. It was mine, so that was my fashion. Dr. G, how about you?
Wow, we're really on pace. Same here.
Wow.
Baby Doll deserves something. She had to put up with a lot over these 4 weeks.
Well, I could either give her the Fred Flintstone dress, so to speak, like Ben said too, if I wanted to. So. Wow. Calum?
Unfortunately, but we're not going 3 for 3 in this one. I've got Paul Ellering's kimono from the Great American Bash.
Yeah, the Ricky Steamboat kimono. That's a good one. That's a real good one. Ben?
I've gone quite boring and traditional. Ric Flair's suit in his promo, that was amazing.
I'm surprised he didn't pick Tully's suit.
Tully's suit was a very close second, I'll be honest.
I was gonna say you professed your love for Tully tonight as his as a man crush, so I thought you would have picked Tully.
Yeah. Well, I always had this, I always, like you said earlier on, you know what you're gonna get with Flair. And I didn't necessarily know what I was gonna get with Tully.
Very good. So, guys, that closes out July 85. So now we're set up for August next month, which is also a great month. But thank you again. It's been a great watch and a lot of fun. Ben, thank you for joining us. And so I'd like to hear your overall thoughts at this point before we go around and do any plugs or anybody's pods. So this is your first time watching Crocket, and it's been a hell of a 4-week journey here in July. What are your overall thoughts on Crocket Wrestling NWA 85?
Yeah, on the whole, I really enjoyed it. Apart from the Jimmy Valiant stuff, but that kind of exists in its own universe. So everything else, I quite like. Yes, Dusty's got involved in too much shit. Yeah, I'd agree with that. But apart from the baby doll stuff, most of it's entertaining. Looking at it with the 2020 eyes, yeah, it's uncomfortable to watch, and they should, stop it immediately. But I kind of know where it's going to lead, so at least I've got that to look forward to.
Okay, excellent. So hopefully you keep watching and listening along with us on the journey. So we'll go around the horn. Yeah. Go ahead, Ben. Go ahead.
I was going to say I will definitely be carrying on watching, because this is a total black spot for me. Is sort of this Crocket mid-80s era. I always hear everybody go on and go crazy about it, so it's something I've always wanted to get into.
It sure beats watching Impact shows and shit shows for chicken salad, right? So, anyway, we'll go around the horn with plugs. So, Dr. G, what you got going on?
Well, first I want to say thank you to Ben for joining us tonight. It was nice to meet you on the pod, and hope to have you on back in the future. And I'm glad you enjoyed it, because it's great to see people who are watching either for the first time or hadn't watched it in a while, what their thoughts are, and the excitement, and how really we could all, even though we may be in different age groups in terms of our watching of wrestling, how we are all kind of like agreeing on a lot of the same things that we see on on the shows. So it was a pleasure to have you. But I have coming up the Saturday special this week. We'll be breaking down the fourth week of the, I guess, like the package that they did for the UWN. So we're looking forward to breaking that down this week. And basically we got this pod coming out. So that's pretty much what I got going on the Place to Be Wrestling Network.
All right. Calum?
Well, we have got the myself and Ben are in the. Well, Ben is the ideas man, so he's the Dusty Rhodes of the special relations. So he's planning another excellent special relations coming up for what month are we on now? Look at October. Yeah. It's just this year. I mean, it could be October, it could be April. I really don't know. So we've got that coming up. I believe Andy has already mentioned it at one point, but myself and Rory and Ben are going to be on the Great Debate coming up very soon as well. So I'm looking forward to that one. And for anyone who hasn't checked it out already, please check out the new Place to Be Nation YouTube page. I've been doing some stuff for that, trying to get it up slowly but surely. I was hoping to get a lot of stuff in a back catalogue whilst I was off on holiday, but then my holiday got cancelled by my boss, so didn't really get that. Didn't get the chance to do that, but stuff's going up slowly but surely. We've started some of the sports simulations, and there'll be stuff coming up on a wide variety of stuff. I believe we have one wrestling thing up already. It's the main event dream matchups. I put the Godfathers up. It was Midnight Express against the New Day, because when the Godfather requests something, who am I to turn them down? But other than that, you can follow me on the Twitter machine at Calum7McDougall, or myself and Ben have got access to the special relations Twitter, which I can never remember, so I'll let Ben tell you that one.
All right, Ben, what you got?
Just going back on what Calum said, it's quite scary that we're also planning our Christmas special and it's only just turned October. So what have I got coming up? We have got an episode of Special Relations recording in about a week's time. The newest one with Logan is well worth listening if you've not heard it yet.
It is good. I got it. Like I said,
yeah.
I got to give credit. Yeah, it's good.
I'm also on Highway to the Impact Zone with Sean. That is so much fun. It's a bit like this, you know. There's some good, there's plenty of bad, and we always have a laugh and a joke in between, and it's really good fun. I will let Sean mention what we've got coming up on Chicken Salad. As Calum's already said, we're doing the Great Debate, recording that this week. I'm also going to be doing Making Mount Rushmore next week, which I'm really looking forward to. So you can reach me individually on Twitter at BenL1981, or you can reach us on the Special Relations at PTBN Special Rel 1. At PTBN Special Rel 1.
All right, and as for me, you can reach me on Twitter at NWA Crock and Roll, so kind of the pod Twitter more than anything. But also, yes, Chicken Salad with Ben and Logan and myself, looking at the worst perceived pay-per-views of all time. We just watched Halloween Havoc 98, so that should be out by the time this comes out, I believe. Really, really fun show to watch, and it's always a good time on that show. We have varied opinions, mostly between me and Logan, who don't see eye to eye on several matches, so it makes it a little fun and interesting. And poor Ben gets caught in the middle as a moderator and sometimes doesn't know what to do with either one of us, but it's always a fun listen. And then obviously this pod, you mentioned Highway to the Impact Zone. I have a comics pod with Tim and Jenny called Shrink Wrapped on the North-South feed. The latest one looks at the Killing Joke, so give that one a listen. And then I should be, by the time this comes out, on the latest. Oh, it actually came out today of this recording, the Mount Rushmore, looking at the comics villains for DC and Marvel. So, I will be on Ruthlessly Aggressive podcast coming up here shortly. So a lot going on. Again, I want to thank Dr. G, Calum McDougall, and Ben. Again, thank you for this journey through July 85 Crocket. We will be back in 1 month's time for August with all the follow-up from the Bash, all the follow-up from Baby Doll, all the follow-up with Andersons and the TA attacks, and a lot more. So until then, guys, thanks again, and we will see you guys in August.